How to make sticker with Sticker app is easy. First, make design, then go to
Hello?
Like you're just not sure.
Some days I am not. Yeah, so we're here. Happy Saturday.
It's rainy Saturday for me.
Yeah, it's, here, well, I hear the sirens. Here in the U.S., things are not great this weekend. Although I do have to say, watching news of protests, I haven't seen anything out of Baltimore, which may or may not be good. but Philadelphia seems to be, I think that was like the flagship city for the main big, I can't remember, what is it called? No Kings.
No Kings.
Yeah, so I saw the coverage from Philadelphia. Seems like things are very peaceful. I mean, that's what you want to see out of a protest is peaceful demonstration. So that's good. But there's been other bad news out of our country, and all I can say is, what the hell is wrong with people? So, but I don't want to start off on a bad note. So what I can tell you, which we'll be happy to hear, is I already had lunch, so I'm not hungry.
I just ate too. Like I was literally like shoving it in my face right before we hopped on because it was 1:30 and I was like, oh, I'm really going to regret it if I don't.
Well, I had to run errands today, and with it being Father's Day tomorrow, my husband has to work. And so I thought, well, we could maybe get him a nice lunch today. So there's this really great little barbecue hut that's on my way to.
Oh, you told me about this place.
Yeah, so I got him the stuff he likes there, and of course I happen to like something there that is so delicious. It's like one of those like I had to wash the sauce off my face.
This is one of those places where like one sandwich is like 4 meals, right? Is that place?
Not really. So this place is a little bit different than other it's a little bit more of like gourmet. It's definitely in Maryland there are those like roadside, it's made out of a giant barrel and they're cooking some giant piece of meat. Usually it's pit beef. That's what's big here.
Some giant piece of meat.
Yeah, and they're just smoking it. And here they don't really do barbecue necessarily in Maryland. It's pit beef and it's sliced, So that's like really big, and then horseradish sauce and stuff. But there are these little independent places, and it's actually at a garden center. It's one of those like,
I love that.
yeah, this is one of those places. This is not on all year round. We've got a couple of really cool places that are all year round, and they do like big insane things for the holidays and stuff. But this place is seasonal, so it's only like April through November, maybe. I don't know. They have pumpkins, so they get that far and then they close down for the season. But anyway, they have this little barbecue stand there, and they do things like baked potato with, loaded baked potato with all this smoked meat and deliciousness on it, and tacos. Oh, I get the tacos. Anyway, that's enough food talk.
No, it's funny though, but it's funny that you mentioned it's at a garden center, because it's also funny because it's like we both ate, so we don't need to talk about food.
Yeah.
But anywho, it's funny because as a kid, there was this garden center place that's not around anymore. It's now Planet Fitness. That we used to go to all the time, and in one of the greenhouses, it was like 90% of it was all year round. They'd close the outside greenhouses in the winter, but in this like indoor greenhouse full of plants was a cafe.
Oh.
And you sat like in tables among all the green
among the plants.
I loved it.
Oh, that's cool.
And then now, speak of the devil, because Sunday is first in the chat. Hi, dear. There's this really big garden center that's been around since I was a kid. It's a different place than the one I was just talking about. It's massive. They must do insane business every year, but it's like an experience when you go there, because it's so big and there's so much, and I every time we go there, I always comment to him like, God, I wish they had they really need a cafe. Like if they had a cafe, it would be like complete.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for businesses like that can sort of, it's like lateral thinking. It's like they come up with things that, who would have ever thought a cafe and a garden center, but it works, right? And people like it. And I'm sure maybe they're renting the space. They were renting the space to that cafe, or maybe it was their own cafe. I don't know. But yeah, I always think that's brilliant. And then people like it. This garden place, people go there to do like, I don't know, I'm not a gardener. I kill plants like by just looking at them, like, and it's dead. They go there, they get their plants and stuff, and then they go, and then there's like vegetables and things, and then they go over to the barbecue hut, and then sometimes there's the guy there with the crabs if it's that season. And apparently next weekend they're having a Tom Petty cover band playing. They have like a little amphitheater thing out back now, apparently.
This place would totally have the space for stuff like that.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It might be a little. It might cost a little more for them to get it going, because they are in somewhat of like a swamp area.
Swampy.
They're like around the perimeter. There's like these little swampy pond things, so it probably might cost a little more to do some of that upgrading. But one thing they don't even do that they could do is food trucks.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think there's a number of places like not close to us, but sort of in the outer parts of Baltimore that do. There's I think there's one. It's kind of where I used to work, a few miles away. That I think they might do things with food trucks sometimes, and people love that. Oh my gosh, any kind of event with a food truck.
Well, and something. I'm saying this like they could do it to quote like boost business. They don't need to boost business.
Yeah, but I think there is something to be said for a place that people want to go to, because it's got
absolutely.
all sorts of interesting and fun things to do. And I keep hearing about the like third places. We don't have as many third places anymore, And
okay, wait, I know what that is, but I'm blanking. Remind me.
So it's a place that's not work and it's not home.
That's it. That's okay. Yep.
Yeah, a place together, a safe place together, a place, where, I think children, young people need third places, like, like boys and girls clubs and after school activities. Like, those are third places as well. But I just think like a place where your family can go, and even though it's shopping, but they have picnic tables and all kinds of cool stuff there for people to just, come and enjoy lunch and things like that. I think that's great.
Just to exist.
Yeah. Hey, Janet.
Yeah. You can definitely go in there and exist, and there's not the pressure to spend money. Mm-hmm. But I would love it if they had seating, and like they have some greenhouses that are kind of like they're set up in like a stylized fashion. It's not just rows of stuff.
Right.
And every time I'm walking in there, I'm like, I'd love it if there was just a place in here to like sit down.
Bring your own chair.
Yeah, like I'm just like, I just want to sit in here.
You and Sunday could bring your own chair, some handheld gaming, some books.
Well, and I'm telling you, this place now is full of millennials because it's the millennial season to get into gardening.
Yes, the millennials have been the the plant parents for a while, right? Like I've noticed over the pandemic, the younger people and the plant parenting.
Yeah, they reached that era of their life when they're
that quasi middle-aged point where you get into like you get really serious about your hobbies.
Yeah, and when you realize that you like plants more than a lot of people.
I didn't say hi to Sunday. Hi, Sunday. I'm glad you're here. He's probably already gone.
Or he's knee deep in that game you're talking about. Although today, believe it or not, there was a sale on lobsters. So we are having lobsters for dinner.
Oh, nice. Oh, that is
so
bougie.
As soon as I'm done here, I've got to like run over there for lobster time. You noticed that I am not in my usual spot when we do Stitch and Glitch.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I am never sure where you're going to be broadcasting from.
I am in the moving out of this sewing room, which there was some more progress recently. There was another shelving unit that came out and went to the new one. Not to be used in the sewing room, but it still left this room. So I am in here because I unloaded from my retreat this week. What
day did you get back? I got confused about how long you were there.
I came back Wednesday. And I unloaded, and last night I was working on some stuff, and today I was like, I still maybe want to work on some of that stuff during the Stitch and Glitch and like show some of it.
Yeah, I'm very eager to hear more about the retreat because it sounds like now I'm blanking on what kind of facility it is.
It's a hotel.
A hotel, okay.
A small one though. It's a small hotel.
But don't they do other stuff there? Like, what did you say? Like, it's often used for
it's a ski resort.
Ski resort, that's right. Okay. Yeah, I knew it was something like off season. Like you guys were using it, like whoever organized the retreat uses it off season, So
we were in Waterville Valley, New Hampshire, and the mountain, like one of the mountains you ski there is Waterville Valley. Which I have skied as a kid. I don't remember liking it too much, but another mountain nearby that I only know because I drove by it was Cannon. There's others. You're right in the White Mountains. And when you like go into like Waterville Valley, you're in this little valley of mountains, and they created like a little town in there. And it's a little like resort town. So there's like these little roads, and then there's all these like condo little buildings everywhere. And we were in one small hotel. And when I say small, it was 4 floors, but only like 10 rooms per floor. Like it's small.
So it's a boutique sized situation.
Yeah, kind of like a little, like a small ski lodge kind of hotel. Then there's like, you walk down this like other little road, and there's this like really like pretty, I have pictures, there's this really like pretty like kind of like common area that has shops, and some of them were open. We walked down there one day, and my friend Christine bought some funny stuff at a gift shop. Joanna and I had some frou-frou coffee at a coffee place. There's a bookstore, like when I say frou-frou, I mean, don't get me wrong, I had an iced chai latte. It was delicious. It was $8.
Oh my god.
With the tip and stuff, it was $8. I was like, this better be the best. And I needed a little pick-me-up one day, so I was like, this better be the best coffee I've ever had.
Oh, no kidding. I mean, I don't want to disparage like small mom and pop type places, but oh my god, Starbucks has ruined everything, you know.
Well, like, you realize, well, it's also, I mean, this place is going to be expensive because it's
tourist.
Yeah.
I understand that, I get that, but oh my god, the way that business is kind of sort of gouge the tourist market is absurd.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't.
And I mean, it was very good. And also, like, we needed a little walk Um,
I
but
feel
let
like
me
retreats, I don't know if everybody out there has ever done retreats, but I feel like retreats, no matter what they are, whether they're, crafting and creativity, or if they're like lecture based, whatever, you still do a lot of sitting and a lot of eating. It's like your whole day revolves around like, okay, I'm going to work on this project for a little while, or I'm going to listen to this lecture for a little while. Oh, look, it's time for lunch. And then you're like,
I think it's because you don't have any. I think it's because there's nothing else to focus on.
Right.
You don't have
Yeah,
to
you
unload
don't
the
have.
dishwasher, and you don't have to run errands, and you don't have to feed or bathe kids or husbands or pets or so like literally the only thing you
Yes.
have to think about is only the things that you want to do. And most people
Exactly.
are perfectly happy wanting to sew and eat.
Sit and sew and eat.
That
Yep.
is that is 100% what my wow, that was a weird bird outside. It was 100% what I wanted to think about all day. Plus, in between, you have snacks.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend Christine, she brought all the snacks, like more snacks than ever. And then she didn't eat like any of them I did. She brought like the extra toasty cheeses.
Yeah,
One thing that I brought that was sitting on my desk on the like my sewing desk the whole time, that ended up in my sewing stuff, so now it's on my sewing desk down here, is trail mix.
Oh.
I like me some trail mix. You obviously cannot eat some trail mix.
Yeah, there are some limited trail mixes out on the market that I can eat. Actually, I happen to have one here.
And
it
what
has,
is in that tropical mix other than a toucan?
Oh yeah, it's got a toucan meat. Just kidding. There's no toucan meat in there. It's banana chips, papaya, pineapple, raisins, cashews, almonds, and cranberries. Yeah, so I can eat cashews and almonds. They're like, and pistachios. Those are like the only nuts.
It's missing one of the key elements of a trail mix.
What?
M&Ms.
Okay. I don't know that M&Ms go very well with tropical stuff because like the pineapple and stuff is pretty sweet. But yeah, I mean, I would not be above throwing some.
It's supposed to have a chocolate element to it.
A chocolate element.
Yeah.
Yes, all of the Gorpy trail mixes always do have. They always do. Seem to have.
Gorpy? What is Gorpy?
Yeah, Gorp. Good old raisins and peanuts. You've never heard that?
I've never ever. This is one of those moments where we're gonna know how old you are. I've never ever heard of that.
All right, friends out there. Are you familiar with Gorp? Did you know the good old raisins and peanuts of yesteryear before you could buy packaged whatnots? Yeah, I guess that is. I guess I am showing my age.
Yeah, never heard of Gorpy. But anyhow,
Well, it's just Gorp. It's called Gorp. Good old raisins and peanuts, and I just was making it into a adjective.
Let me show off some photos.
Yes, please.
Of So this is the view from my sewing table.
This is the one you sent me.
Yep.
And so did they have like a big common room that was like there like a where you'd go in the lodge to have your hot cocoa with your ski buddies? Like is that like what it is?
No, so that room was downstairs when you walk in, they had kind of like a living room set up that had like some tabletop games.
Oh, fun.
Some like nice places to sit, and then like off to the side, I didn't go into this room, but they had almost kind of like a library quiet room that had like really comfortable sofas to sit on and like books and bookshelves and stuff like that. This is a room that was one floor up that was like a private rentable room, and then across the hall was another one like the same size. And then it was great because I think this retreat had like 20 people.
Okay, I was gonna ask how many people were there.
Yeah, it's a small retreat. I've been on big ones. The one that I used to go to in January had like 40 plus. So and we were in the basement of a hotel in like a wedding reception type room. But the nice thing is that like most everybody's rooms were on the same floor as the retreat space.
Oh, nice.
So we just had to walk down the hall to go to our room. I didn't take a picture of the whole room just because, you know, there's people that don't want their picture taken. But this was my terrible view. I was right next to the window, and you see a fan right here. There's a AC over here, and there's another AC over here, and then a fan next to me.
So this was like a deck. Was this something you could walk outside or no?
No, because our tables were in front of the doors.
Okay, gotcha.
But technically, yes. So there's that.
I love
Here's
places like that. You know, I mean, there's something to be said for these. Like, I don't know if it's an independent. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but, you know, a place like that versus, you know, your just garden variety hotel. You know, your Holiday Inns and your Best Westerns and your Ramadas. I think it's so much
it was
more fun.
It was a little. It was not. It was a little more cozy than that. And I will say, our rooms, compared to some of the hotel rooms, our rooms were a good size. Like, we had 2 queen beds, and then we also had a couch.
Nice.
And with our, it was interesting. We had a mini fridge, no microwave. There was a microwave downstairs, but we had a kitchen sink.
Huh.
Which I would expect, if you're gonna have a kitchen sink, that you would have a microwave. But there was definitely room to have one. But
Okay, so Janet says, Girl Scout leader and trainer here. Of course I have heard of GORP. Thank you. She also says she missed it. Where was the retreat? So it was in New Hampshire. I can't remember the town.
Yeah, this is Waterville Valley, New Hampshire.
Waterville Valley. Yeah.
This retreat was put on by a woman named Joy Worcester, and her business is called Quilting in New England, and she has multiple retreats.
You know, you mentioned her to me the other day, and I was
yeah,
gonna look her
I think
up.
most of them are here. I think she does 1 or 2 others at another place. Her and I were talking about retreat stuff for a couple of reasons. One, my young and millennial group has been asking for kind of a group's quote sponsored retreat for years. We used to talk about it when we were a small group of like 250 people, and we really did look into doing something maybe in the middle of the country, you know, that could have handled a large portion of those people. Now there's no way to
Yeah,
do
what
a
do you have?
retreat
Last time I
people.
looked, that group had like, was it 40 or 60,000 people? It's a lot of people.
Yeah. So now that there are a lot of satellite regional groups that are geared more towards just local things happening for people to get together and stuff like that, I was considering, you know, potentially hosting one for our New England chapter, and was just asking this woman kind of about how some of the things worked, or would she ever consider hosting it for us, because she's done all the legwork. And so she did mention that there is also a place in this area, this little town, that is a condo center
Oh,
that she's done a retreat at as well. And she said it can be a little more, it could be even, I thought this was pretty like economical, but she said it can be even more so because a condo can sleep more people.
yes.
Depending on how you want to do that. Like condos often have, you know, bunk beds and things like that, or if you wanted to do air mattress or something. Although my hotel room would have easily fit in an air mattress. So there was that stuff. And then I was also considering like a New England quilt study group type retreat, similar to the way Leah Zieber does her Temecula.
The Temecula, yeah.
Because
I mean, this place
having
sounds,
those 2 rooms.
Yeah, the way thinking about Leah's setup, this place seems like it would be a very cool kind of, you know, East Coast version of that, you know, East Coast alternative. Because I know a lot of people have always wanted to go to Leah's retreat, and Leah's not going to be in charge of her retreat anymore. She's, and I don't know if I've said this on any of our streams, but she's kind of retiring from it, but she's kind of passing the reins. They're still going to do it. I think it's just going to change a little bit, but I know there's lots of people here on the East Coast that have wanted to go to it or something like it, but it's just cost prohibitive when you have to say like the cost of the retreat and then airfare on top of it. So I think I know lots of people have been eagerly hoping for something here.
Right. Well, and it's funny, this woman Joy, she hadn't heard of AQSG, and she was like, how have I never heard of that? So she actually could end up becoming a member.
Oh,
But
nice.
I had said to her, I'm like, at the bare minimum, I was like, well, you know, do you want me to put you on the master email list for regional quilt study? And she was like, oh my God, absolutely. So again, it's one of those, it's someone that's already done all the legwork.
Hmm.
And since she does multiple retreats at this venue, it's kind of like, oh my goodness, if we had someone that could already do all the back end
Hmm.
and would want to
Yeah.
come and would want to be, you know,
Hmm.
involved in there, that could make things so much easier than having to start from scratch. I couldn't
Yeah.
guarantee that things would be done as personalized as Leah's are or were. You know, if I know from stories from you that it really, you really felt special
Yeah. Yeah. She did a lot.
when you
She
were
did a
there.
lot of really
Yeah.
fun stuff for us. Yeah.
So, well, and on the one hand, I mean, that's one of the things that burns people out, you know.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And no, I think that yes, it's easy to sort of burn out managing events like this. And yeah, when you have all of like the logistical stuff to deal with, and then you're trying to do like the nice fun stuff too, you do get burnout.
Right.
But I like the thought of somebody who, kind of having like the retreat like coordinator that's kind of already done it before, and then the rest of the coordinators can work on like personalizing and focusing on the content versus like where people are going to sleep and the emergency forms and junk like that. So,
Yeah, I was very interested. Now, that being said, for full disclosure, this retreat started on the Sunday, and we could get into the retreat room as early as 1 p.m. Our check-in was 3, or at least whenever the rooms were ready. There was next
mm-hmm.
to no one else staying at this resort. So when I walked in, I was like 15 minutes early for check-in, and my key was waiting on the counter with my name on.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I said to the guy, I'm like, I know I'm early, and he's like, are any of these your name? And I'm like, this is me. So normally that's never happening in a hotel. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
so there's that. And then we sewed all day Monday, all day Tuesday. We could sew till whenever we wanted to. It's just the last person had to like lock the door and make, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then on Wednesday, you have to check out of your room by 10 just so that they can clean.
Mm-hmm.
But you could sew till whenever you wanted because she's technically there till Thursday because
Gotcha.
the room across the hall, she set up the biggest satellite store I've ever seen at a retreat. It was massive. I was wholly not prepared.
Yeah.
I know, I think like in like the documents she sent us, it said that she would have stuff, but like it did not say that she would have like a pop-up boutique.
Come
Like,
with no supplies. I've got you covered. Just bring money.
yeah, you could have done that. You totally could have done that. She had literally everything that like you could possibly need, except for a particular template that I'd left at home. She had the same template in a bigger size. Um, but she had one thing I left at home was, well, I didn't leave it at home. It was just probably in another package. But this is my favoriteest ruler. It's the 2.5 by 5 from Missouri Star.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I use this all the time. I have like 3 of them. Apparently 3 wasn't enough.
So now you have 4.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
right now, this is the only one where I know where it is. So luckily she had it, so I bought it from her. She also gave us like the biggest on-site discount
Yeah,
I've
you
ever
said it was at
had.
25%. Yeah, that is unheard of.
Other
But
retreats,
she
it's like
doesn't she
15.
doesn't have a brick and mortar, right? She
No,
just has this
it's online.
business, and so I guess I mean, not to say like, oh, she can afford a 25% discount, but I would think like,
Right, but she doesn't have the massive
the
overhead.
overhead, yeah. I think that like kind of an online or just this kind of roving pop-up situation she's got is probably she can sort of factor in a better discount than maybe a
Well, and
brick
it
and
was
mortar
better
could.
for her because she did 2 retreats back to back. So she only had to set up that shop once
One
in
time.
those 2 weeks. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I spent money I was not at all prepared to spend. I haven't done any like fabric shopping in a long time. So there was that. So this is my one reason I was shopping is because this particular project here that I've been working on for years,
I love
it's
that.
it's a scrappy, it's scrappy and it's right here. Um, ugh. And I kind of work on it until I reach a bit of a roadblock and then I put it down. So the roadblock I often reach is I run out of trying to find like a finished block here. I run out of variety um for my blocks because I'm trying to do it to look repro-ish, like Victorian. And here's a block. And when I run out of variety
okay.
in either the colors or the neutrals, I go and try to find a little bit of variety. So I she had a bunch of she had some yardage, but she had a bunch of pre-cuts and they weren't necessarily repro like lines, but when I was looking through the prints, they had some prints that would work, you know, that would pass for repro. So I bought the most pre-cuts I've ever bought in my entire life in one place. Because the thing that will work for making those inner pieces is 2.5 inch squares. So you can buy these little mini charm packs. And she had a ton of those. I've never seen so many in a shop.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned that to me the other day, and I was like, you know, you go to shops, and even shops that tend to have a lot of pre-cuts, I feel like those itty bitty little charms, either they don't buy as many of them, or maybe the lines they carry don't come. I don't know. I'll see like maybe a little gathering of like at the most 4 or 5 different lines of those in a shop, and then I won't see anything else. So yeah. Janet said mini charms are like candy. Yeah. Oh, Janet mentioned empty spools. I've heard of that.
I've heard that empty spool seminar.
Yeah, Asilomar State Park in Pacific Grove, California, nearby but pricey. Yeah.
And that's part of the problem. So this whole thing, so I would actually kind of categorize it as 3 full days of sewing, because if you got in at 1 p.m. on Sunday and you stayed through, you know, depending on how far your drive was, you know, like I think one of my friends left at like 4 p.m. on Wednesday. You know, that ends up being like 3 full days. The first night her and I were there, we stayed up till 1:30. I will say that this particular group goes to bed early. They like the sewing room was empty by 9. Like,
there were, you know, at that Temecula retreat, there were a few people that would stay up. I just brought hand sewing so I could do it in my room, but there were a couple people that wanted to stay in the sewing room, and I think the coordinators were like, we got to go to bed.
Yeah, and luckily the hotel was very kind of uninvolved except for food. So we just had to turn things off and lock the door. But so yeah, 3 full days of sewing, room accommodations that were not uncomfortable. If anything, my only complaint was, in my opinion, the bed was a little too soft. But we had real bathrooms, we had real rooms, we had big rooms, and we had 5 meals and continental breakfast, and it was like $610. So
Yeah, I think that's very reasonable. I mean, just knowing the cost of things. Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
and
yeah,
this was a do your own crap. There was no class or anything.
Yeah.
And compared to the other retreat that my friend Christine and I go on, it's less time and less meals, and I think it's like $580. And to be fair, the food was perfectly fine. Like, I really didn't have any complaints. It's not like gourmet eating, but I was not unhappy. And every dinner they made a cake, a different cake. They were
Everybody loves cake.
They were good cakes. I don't really care much about like carrot cake, but I had the best carrot cake of my life. Like, just saying. We had a chocolate cake. We had a lemon cream. Oh my God, they were delicious.
That's awesome. And
Yeah,
then didn't you
so-
say that Joanna brought you some kind of pancake treat? I don't.
Oh, so that's it. That's in one of my pictures. She didn't bring me anything. No. And anyone that's asking, the Joanna we're talking about is Joanna Evans from AQSG, the previous editor. She jumped into this retreat last minute. We were at an event together when we went to Block Island, and she was there and she heard me talking about going to this retreat with my friend Christine, and she asked about it and was like, "Well, I'm like, well, registration's closed, but I'm like, you can email her if there's a spot. I don't see why you couldn't jump into it." And she emailed her. The woman responded to her right away, and she was like, "I'm going to your retreat," and it was delightful. It was delightful. This is Joanna's right here. She brought hand sewing. She was quilting on this the whole time that we were there because it was apparently long overdue to be finished quilting. This,
The rainbow.
yeah, this is not from the retreat. This is from my hometown. But I threw it in here because this is one of the most intense rainbows I've ever caught on camera before. And it was,
I haven't seen
this
a good
storm
strong
happened,
rainbow.
like, this storm, and it ended up being like, you can see how it's starting to be a double rainbow. It ended up turning to a double rainbow. You could see the whole arc. It was massive. It was so bright. If you consider how bright it is on my camera, you know it's even brighter in person. It was insane.
Yeah,
But I just threw that in here because
yeah, I haven't seen a good rainbow in a while. I was glad to see that because I think you sent me that picture too.
Yeah, I did. It was ridiculous. So here's the outside.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it does look like a ski lodge.
Yeah. So this is the room we're in, where you were like, "Can you get out on the deck?"
I see. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So it's not a fancy venue. It's an older hotel. So if you like really brand new stuff, it's not.
You know, and that's the thing. Like, I guess I know some people like really like feel like they have to have that stuff. I'm kind of like, as long as it's warm and or cool, depending on the season, and there's nothing that prevents me from getting like an okay night's sleep. I mean, I'm not a great sleeper when I travel, but as long as there's a bed to lay on, and I like having my own bathroom. Otherwise, yeah, I don't care, you know? I mean, because like you don't go to a retreat to like hang out and enjoy the luxury of your room.
No.
You went for the sewing and the communicate, you know, the,
Well,
the
and like I
community
said,
and
the rooms were big. Like we had like a couch and a coffee table, and you know, plenty of space. We had a huge closet. Like,
That's pretty cool.
if I was going to complain about anything in the room, it would just be that the bathroom, in my opinion, was small. Like, you had to like walk in and like turn and stand next to the toilet to like shut the door.
shut the door. Yeah.
But like, to me, like, that's a really minor complaint. So,
You kind of
And I-
are.
and
If that's going to be your complaint about that, I mean, that's not a big deal. If that's a deal breaker for you, you're a turd.
yeah, it was not at all a deal breaker for me. So there's that. Then here's that place I told you about that we walked to, where there's all these shops and stuff.
Oh, cool! It's like a
Yeah,
little.
you come in under this little like awning thing.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the square.
Gorgeous.
It's really, really pretty.
I have to say, I mean, I've only been to New Hampshire a couple times. The one major time I went was for also a retreat, but it was at Squam Lake, and
Like a quilt retreat?
It was not quilt. It was just art related. Actually, it's called Squam. It's like an artist retreat, and there's a lot of knitters that go to it. But it's kind of a wide variety of people that they tap to teach classes. And it's one of those things where, you know, you can sign up for different classes, but you stay there for a week. I went in September. I think it was kind of like my birthday present. And this has been 2017, I think, when I went. But you stayed in these cabins, these very rustic cabins. So like they had bathrooms, but they're one of those like It's kind of like these cabins were built probably turn of the century, and they framed in a bathroom into them. You didn't have a refrigerator. You actually had an old-fashioned ice box, and they had an ice house because the lakes freeze in the winter, and they harvest ice. I think it's like one of the only remaining ice harvesting operations, like in the U.S. or something. I don't know. Anyway, they take all the ice and they put it in these barns covered in sawdust, and so like I think it's every 3 days, I think. So you only got 2 of them while you were there, but they have these kids that work there, like this summer resort kids that come in and work. I guess they're probably college kids, and they'll bring in this little trolley, they'll bring your ice, and they have the giant ice pinchers that they pick it up and they put it in the bottom part of the ice box, and then there's this little contraption that the ice drains into as it melts.
Wow.
But the little refrigerator's big enough to put, I think they, like, my cabin mates had it stuffed with like wine and wine and cheese and stuff. But I'm trying to think how many people fit in the cabin that we were in. It's probably like 7 or 8 people. So it was like a bigger thing, and it had an upstairs, but like no air conditioning, like, it's kind of a screened in situation, and that's all you got. So there was that. It was kind of hot, but literally right on the lake. Like, you walk out the back door and you literally walk down a little stairway, like right into the lake. And the lakes up there are those glacier lakes, so they were just absolutely beautiful, crystal clear. Freaks me out a little bit to be in that water because I'm like, oh God, I can see the bottom.
I would think that would be less freaky because you can see things.
Well, that's the thing. You can see the things that are swimming around you, and you're like, ah! The thing is, like, in murky water like we have here, we have that kind of swampy, murky water. You don't see the things unless they bump up against you. So you could just pretend there's nothing in this water. But in those crystal clear lakes, I mean, they're beautiful. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's just fantastic. But you look down and you're like, you stay away, fish. You do not swim around and bump into my legs because I'm going to freak out.
I think I'd rather see my enemy coming than not.
This is true. I don't know. I just have this horrible dream of, like, the fish is no big deal, but, like, just, I don't know, like turning and looking and there's like a shark coming towards you, which I know is stupid and ridiculous. This is only like 5 feet deep water. I think it was like up to here on me when I stood up. And, but yeah, I don't know. It was unnerving, but also just so beautiful. We don't have lakes like that down here. And, and then the other time, I'm pretty sure it was New Hampshire. I visited some friends that were living in Massachusetts temporarily. They don't live there anymore, but, for the week I was with them, they kind of took me on a little tour. So we ended up in Maine and New Hampshire, and then just kind of different places around Massachusetts. So had the obligatory lobster.
This place was really cool. I don't know everything about it, and this is the tail end of it, where there's this gazebo, and apparently this is like swimmable, I think, like lake water.
So is this like in western New Hampshire, I guess? I mean, New Hampshire's not a huge state.
No, it's kind of the middle of New Hampshire, but like middle and north.
Okay. Yeah. Because I know New Hampshire's a small state and it's also coastal, right?
But no, only a small part of New Hampshire is coastal.
Okay.
So like when you're on the coast, you're in Massachusetts, you hit New Hampshire for like 3 minutes, and then you're in Maine.
Yeah.
So like Portsmouth, New Hampshire, is the coast, and like that's it, and then you're in Kittery, Maine.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like New Hampshire's just like ooh, and then like whoop. Coast.
I think that must be why I think that Massachusetts is more coastal, because I think that we did go to whatever that little blip on the coast is, like whatever that is.
Massachusetts has a lot more coast, yeah. And then you're literally like it takes maybe 15 minutes or something like that to go from the border of Mass to the border of Maine.
Yeah, I remember thinking to myself, like, this is wild. We hit 3 states in like 30 minutes.
Well, and that's one reason why it was so wild when we were out in the Midwest because I was like, wow, we've been in this state forever.
Forever.
And we're
Yes,
so
because
used to
states in the
states being
Midwest
so
are
much closer
just much
together.
larger. Yes.
So
Yeah.
there's this. And I
Try
think
driving across Texas
I will not. I will not.
or up and down California. It's yeah.
So here's a view where I have the gazebo to my back and I'm looking at the inside of this whole thing. So like I
So
don't
what's
I
above the
guess
shops? Is
I'm well so these are more shop things. Like this thing right here is an escape room.
oh, that sounds fun.
And I don't know for sure, but I'm gonna guess these are condos up here.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like maybe is this like mixed use kind of
Yeah.
buildings?
And then like when like over here there's like stairs you go down and there's like a restaurant. Like we didn't like do a deep dive looking into things because like it was starting to rain. So like here's the gift shop that my friend went into. It's so funny. She bought some stuff in there and it was two seasoning mixes. One was chicken shit and the other one was like pork shit or something. And then when you bought them, you got a bag called a sack of shit. And that was funny. And then like the coffee shop that Joanna and I went to is like right here. And on the way home, I stopped because we like passed over this little creek, and I'm like, oh my God,
Oh.
it's so cute and like nice. And this there's little rivers and creeks and stuff everywhere. Here's more picture. This is my table with my see snacks. And this is my friend Christine's table here. And this now at this point, I'm working on a different project that I've been working on for a while. And the nice thing about it is you can kit up blocks, but it's all these finish at 4.5 inches. And this is from a Bonnie Hunter thing called a leader ender project, and you
Oh
like kit
yeah,
up
that's right.
blocks and leave them by your machine and you
Yeah.
put them in between sewing other things.
Hmm.
um I wasn't sewing them in between other things. I just started sewing them, and I since it's 4.5 inch blocks, I'm gonna need a lot to like make something, so I've just been like endlessly kitting them up.
And that
And
kind
I
of
like
ends up. It kind of ends up looking like an
Irish
Irish
chain.
change kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
because I've kept it's all scrappy, but one thing I've kept is one of my lines with like the 1.5 inch block squares. I
Hmm.
kept this
Same color.
consistent. It's just gonna be blue. Yeah. So it'll be interesting. So I was working on that.
Oh,
And
Janet says
also,
those buildings look like carriage houses.
yeah, kind of. Uh, my friend Christine brought these gummies that are in this bag right here, and I both love and hate her for introducing me to them because they were really yummy, and I ate like all of them. Oh, here's a pretty flower.
Because she ate none of her snacks and you ate all of her snacks.
Hmm. Yeah, I took that. That was right after it rained outside, and it was just looking. It looked really. You had your head down when I started it.
Oh,
Really
sorry.
pretty.
Yeah, what are those? Iris?
I think so. They were just looking really pretty outside. Here is the satellite shop.
Oh my God.
Hold on.
That's a lot of stuff.
Hold on.
I mean, when you
That's
said.
only one of 4 walls.
Oh my God. I have never seen. Oh my God. I mean, this is more than like a booth at QuiltCon or a quilt show or something.
I told you she
Yowza.
had everything. And this was the room directly across from our sewing room. So you can see what I
Nice.
mean by like that has a good setup for.
Yeah, yeah.
And then also there's, the place downstairs where we eat. But again, since this was off season and we basically had the run of the place, I don't see why the hotel wouldn't necessarily let us use that when because the only thing they serve is breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were using it to eat our meals. So if there was
Gotcha.
something like, to do down there, I don't see why they'd say no. They were those were some of the boredest employees
Oh, I bet. I mean, it's off
I've
season.
ever seen at a hotel. Like one of the guys that worked like the afternoon shift or something, he would just be in like the living room area on one of the chairs, like watching TV. Like, yeah. Here's one of my little blocks that I just showed you.
Okay, I see. The blue
Hmm.
will.
Yep, it'll be a constant blue. My friend Christine was making pumpkins.
Aw, cute.
And then when we left, Joanna was like, I want to take you to this restaurant that's
Oh, so
like
Joanna
45
took you
minutes
there.
away.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Um, so Polly's Pancake Parlor, they have all of these different types of pancakes. They have like buckwheat pancakes and like corn pancakes and like all kinds of Joanna's favorite was oatmeal and buttermilk pancakes. It was very, very interesting. I was a basic bitch and just got like their plain pancakes. Well, because I feel like how can I compare if I'm not comparing the base item to other things? It was
Mm-hmm.
very good. It was very good. And you had to drive through the mountains to get here. So that was very pretty. Unfortunately, I was driving, so I couldn't really get any footage of the prettiness. These were outside and they were just looking very pretty. This is the view across the street. So while you're eating, that's the view.
That's not a terrible view. I'm still
No,
amused by the this place is called Polly's Pancake Parlor. I love that.
and it was a big deal. Like they were very busy. Like
Yeah.
even on a Wednesday at 1, like we still had like a half hour wait.
Wow.
We closed the place. So and then driving back through, you're in downtown Franconia, and I saw this.
Very cool. What is that rock structure there?
Well, that's why I was like, "What the hell is that?" And I like pulled over. It's an iron furnace.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, okay. That does like
So,
for smelting and stuff. Yeah, that they had to it would have to be a tower. And when they smelt, it's got to be able to like drain down.
yeah, I had no idea. There was like a tiny little free museum there. I needed to get on the road or I was going to hit massive traffic. So, I didn't go through the little museum, but I at least stopped and like took a picture of
Interesting.
that. Yeah, well, I'm just like driving by and I'm like, is that a castle? Like,
That's what it looks like.
yeah. And that's the end of my pictures.
Well, that's pretty cool. It sounds definitely like you had fun.
Yeah, it was a good time. I would definitely go back. Um and the price was right. And like I said, she has many other ones. Like when I was just farting around looking at her site and stuff and it looks like she's added retreats. I feel like in the beginning when I was like on our newsletter, like she only had maybe like 3 a year. Now it looks like she's got like 8. And
Wow.
she even goes into like November, like right before their season starts, the skiing season.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I if I was her, I'd sort of maximize too. If people are,
yep.
she's doing good business. Yeah.
I will say she did tell me if there's anyone listening that she does have a so whatever because she does have some that have classes. She does have a so whatever you want one in like September that she did tell me still had spaces open if
Oh, nice.
anyone thought that looked nice.
Yeah.
So,
For the longest time, I sort of didn't understand the lure of. I mean, even when I was a young mother working full time and, just too busy to even think, I still didn't quite get the idea of like, I'm just going to go pay somebody to hold space for me where I can just sit and sew and do nothing
mhm.
else. Like, not have a class, not have. And I just was kind of like, I don't know. I mean, why couldn't I just take myself to a hotel and do that? But there's something about the experience, I think. And you know, I mean, for some people, like, that's it. That's the thing that really gets you away from all of the things that are competing for your attention. You know, when you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
have a stay-at-home retreat, it never ends up
Mm-hmm.
being that way because you end up going, oh, let me put a little wash in, or
Well, and you still have to think about things. You have to think about your food and or
yeah.
make your food or get your food. Nope, she just came into the room twice a day and said, "Food's ready," and we went downstairs.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for that. To be, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hello, Flicky Chicky. I like your screen name. That's cute.
Yeah, and then it was just like a buffet line, and we had things like, let's see, the last night we were there, we had chicken parm with like bow ties with kind of like a bit of like a cream sauce on them. It was very good. Many people had seconds
Oh,
um on that buffet, and we still didn't eat it all. They made a lot that night. I was joking with my girlfriend. I was like, "Man, we should have brought like Tupperware so we could have had like a midnight snack." Like they made a lot. And then every single meal we had a salad, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Um, Flicky says, I'm pet sitting in Santa Monica, right by the protest. Is super peaceful, but there's hyped up military around. That's to be expected,
yeah.
I
Well, let's
suppose.
hope it stays peaceful. I mean, yeah, like I said at the top of the stream, I've seen this stuff out of Philadelphia. Looks pretty good. I have not seen anything out of. I'm in Baltimore, so I don't know what's happening here close to me. Um, but knock
So
on wood,
far,
it seems
I've not
so
heard
far, yeah, so far
anything.
so good. And that's always good to hear. My gosh, I mean, I don't want to get back on the subject really, but I just Baltimore has a history of peaceful protests that don't go down very peaceful, and you know, I mean, I strongly believe in the right to, you know, your First Amendment right and to protest, have your voice heard. Um, it's just when things don't stay peaceful, and then you get your jackbooted thugs in military uniforms that. This is coming from a person who has some of these people in my family that not jackbooted thugs, but people that work in you know, as first responders, etc. And often are put in positions that they don't want to be in because they have to, you know, do riot control and stuff. Anyway,
So
I'm happy today to be sweating here.
I am not sweating. I'm actually a little bit chilly. One of the thing I came home last day and was like decided to work on is a lot of people were asking me about my scrap setup. And that's one thing that I was like, oh, I'm gonna show some people. So like to
You're
me,
gonna make me look really bad because my scrap setup.
well, you don't have to talk about your scrap setup. I I like um I like a lot of scrap. I just do. Everything
Hmm.
is color to me. Here's another one of my current blocks. So people were asking me about these blocks. It's so funny because like multiple gals came over like, "Oh my God, the pieces are so small." Are they? Like they're 1.5 inch blocks
Yeah, I
by
mean that
one.
is on the small side, and you're gonna have to make a lot of them to make a bed size
Right,
quilt.
but I'm
But
just thinking like small, like it's the size of my hand. Like I don't like what's their idea of small? Like but anywho, so I was cutting out and kitting up a bunch more of these because I had bought a ton of pre-cuts, like a ton. And we were talking I bought a bunch of charm square packs because I needed some fabric variety. Um like for
Bonnie likes
yeah.
lots of seams. Yeah, that's the Bonnie Hunter one, right? Yeah.
Bonnie does have lots of seams. I needed variety for something else, and I bought these charm packs, and I was probably only pulling, I don't know, maybe 10 pieces out of the charm pack, and the discussion was pre-cuts, and I was talking about how, I have a ton. You guys saw my wall of pre-cuts in
Oh
my
yes.
in my closet. And I have come to realize I am not a collection sewer. I don't buy a collection of fat quarters and do a pattern with that fabric collection. I don't like the look of that. So, I just prefer color. I'll mix and match things, batik with prints, it's all color. So I was like, what am I going to do with all of these pre-cuts I have? Because I found that charm packs, I don't use them. Like I don't use 5-inch squares hardly ever at all. Case in point, I had started cutting out a ton out of other scraps and they sit in this shoebox and I don't
So
do
were
anything.
those 5-inch pre-cuts that right there, or
Yeah.
okay? That's not stuff you've cut that size.
No, so underneath I have like a something dividing them. Underneath are 5-inch squares I had just cut myself, like out of yardage.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones on top came from the retreat and stuff like that. And I have them separated in the moment for a purpose. But I realize I need to stop setting aside that size really in my kind of my scrap user system. Um and I came home and started processing some of these out. Some I'm gonna set aside and be like, does anyone want to like trade 5-inch squares because I need some variety? But one of the things I started doing is this. People were asking me how I set up, and I use Bonnie Hunter's scrap user system. And I have these shoe boxes next to my cutting table, and I do 2.5-inch strips, squares, 2-inch strips, squares, 1.5-inch strips, squares, and then strings, which are, just the leftover
Little
little
tiny,
bits.
yeah.
Yeah, to do like string foundation piecing and stuff. But I realized that like my 2.5-inch bin is overloaded because if I'm only going to use a couple of pieces out of this mini charm pack, well, then that whole thing can then just go into that bin.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized my 2-inch bin, I added some last night, but it was looking pretty, slim. So I decided I'd start going through these 5-inch squares and start cutting some down while simultaneously cutting some 1.5-inch and pieces for this stuff to kit up. And I've got this whole bag of squares and kitted up things and whatever for this project. Um, and whatnot. And then the other nice thing is these pre-cuts are the first thing now that I go to if I'm doing if I'm picking out fabrics to do EPP basting. Because like 2.5-inch squares are great for like big hexies. Let's see, how big are these hexies? 1-inch hexies, like a 2.5-inch square is really good for a 1-inch hexie. These like 2-inch ones are good for like a 1/2-inch hexie, and the 1.5-inch is good for like the how big are these small ones? I guess these are the 1/2-inch hexie. I don't know. They're great for that.
They work for something. They're the right size for something.
Yeah, I pull them out all the time. Janet said, if you got your dream storage for your sewing, what would you use? I put in Billy bookcases in my sewing room, and I was on this like big kick to ruler fold my fabric for a while. I've slowly gotten off of that kick because this is a lot of work, unless you're starting from scratch. But I find the way we often tend to fold fabric, where it kind of ends up in kind of like that rectangular shape, fits well on the Billy bookcase.
Yeah, I think I've
Among
seen
other things.
yeah, I've seen a lot of people that use the Billy bookcases because they're cheap. Do they ever raise the price on them? I think they're the same. They're the same price.
Oh,
they've been since the
I don't
90s.
know. I haven't. I bought mine so long ago.
Yeah,
that
and then I mean, you can often find them at Goodwill and the thrift store too. Usually in
well, the
decent
one
condition.
thing that they don't, at least they didn't have for a while, I don't know if they brought it back, is the Billy CD tower, like that, the CD tower that goes in that line. I have two of them in here. The reason I have those is I ruler fold my fat quarters and put them in there, and they fit perfectly. And then like each CD square can fit something like 40 fat quarters. So I really like that. But as the last I knew, I have three of those total, which still doesn't take them all. Last I heard they like discontinued.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I hadn't heard specifically, but that makes sense. I mean, because people don't have CDs anymore. Although we have a couple CD towers. We actually have one that's kind of a nice piece of furniture. It was like, I want to say my husband bought it like on clearance. And it sort of matches this other piece of furniture we have that we hate. But yeah, it's pretty solid. And I walk past it a lot. It's still by our entertainment center, and it has like maybe the last few CDs that we haven't, packed up, and my husband hasn't digitized. And I look at it periodically, and I'm like, I could fit a decent amount of fat quarters in there.
So I also have that I got off Facebook Marketplace. I have two more CD towers that they're dark. They look like dark wood. It's not real wood, obviously, but they're like half towers, so they almost kind of look like plant pedestals,
Mm-hmm.
and they close, and each side opens up. And my initial thought was that I would put like really light colored fat quarters in there for light protection. Now that they're in my sewing room, because of the way that they open, I'm not necessarily getting as much use out of them as I thought I might. I either have to move them to a different spot, or I just have to get rid of them. Because they're just not functioning the way that I thought that they would. But let me show you, because I see here we've got Leslie's putting together Billy bookcases.
Yeah, hi Leslie, welcome.
Oh wow!
So $69 for the 31-inch wide and $29 sale for the 15-inch wide. Yeah, I think I remember those kind of prices when I was in high school in the late 80s, early 90s. That Billy's were that cheap then.
My friend Patty is currently building a sewing room, and she's been texting me all day about Billy bookcases. But I thought I'd show you how I do my fat quarters in the CD towers.
Oh, don't those look so pretty?
Yeah, and how they pull out. Mm-hmm. And they fit, like, these aren't even in here very tightly, but they fit in there super great. So I love them. So if you ever see them, trying not to make you sick. If you ever see them like on Marketplace or stuff, you should totally get them, because like if you ruler fold them on a 3-inch ruler. So and obviously you don't have to. You could just keep them square if you wanted to.
I feel like every local quilt store I've ever shopped at, it seems like, does their fat quarters a little bit differently. Yep. But so when you ruler fold them, you're talking about a 3-inch a ruler that's 3 inches wide.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, like, what order do you?
So
fold
I iron it out. I fold it in half, turn it, roll, and then fold again.
Okay. And
that's it.
Are you tucking ends in or anything like that?
No.
Yeah, no. I'm sort of like, my fat quarters are lucky when they get folded.
Oh,
and
no,
aren't
like,
just like
it takes some discipline.
It's time.
Yes,
it's time consuming.
They're two side by side.
Yeah, it's time consuming.
Yes, it is, but it goes very fast. And I find I haven't done any in a while. I do have a backlog of ones that need to be folded. Because also, these ones, you don't see them organized by color, just because I was folding them and just getting them in there so that they would stay nice. I have in what will be the new sewing room for anyone that just came in. I'm currently moving out of this sewing room and into a new one. The CD tower that's in the new one is color coded. So they will eventually be organized by color, which means I'll have one entire CD case that's just blue. Because that's my favorite color.
Yeah, but see, mine would be pink, because I have a lot of pink fabric.
But I noticed that on those days when I don't know what I want to do, but I want to be in my sewing room, those are the days I can get a lot of those done. It goes very fast. You'll have 20 done in no time. Like it's very fast. Especially
Yeah,
if you put a show on and
yeah.
just kind of hang.
I think that is the thing. I think that, yeah, that is when you get stuff like that done. And I think it's a great thing to, when you're not sure what you want to do, what you want to make, just playing in fabric, whether
Hmm.
it's tidying it up or just pawing through it, I think is great. Unfortunately, I always have something going on that I'm like, oh, I need to work on this. So like that's what I'll do. I will pick, like, if I don't can't think of what I want to work on or don't have something like really creatively inspiring me, I have so many other little things like English paper piecing projects and stuff where I
Hmm.
can just mindlessly, like, just make units, that I never get around to doing the nice organizational stuff. I need to stop shiny objecting
Yeah.
everything and like just focus on organization.
Organizing my stuff is it's a whole
Oh
other
yeah,
hobby.
it's a full-time
So
job
for me,
sometimes.
well, and for me, right, we always talk about how buying fabric and sewing fabric are two different hobbies. So add another one in there, organizing
Organizing your
things.
fabric, yeah.
Um, I I mean, we did a stream where I was playing with in a fabric closet and kind of organizing some stuff in there. Not really intensely organizing, but organizing. And I'm also, while we're talking, I'm doing cutting for my scrap user system.
Hmm.
Um, but like there's something really meditative for me about the organizing aspects and like the tactile nature of touching the
Mm, yeah, I
not
think
just
so.
any stuff, fabric stuff.
Fabric. I
Well,
don't think I said hi to Lee. Hello. I'm glad you're here.
I also saw Janet said, I have my fat quarters in shoe boxes by collection right now, and it takes up space. Yes, that is also Bonnie Hunter does hers in shoe boxes.
Yeah.
Um, and yes, that does take up space. That's another thing I like about the Billies is like it fits kind of some of the units that I use. The shoe boxes I have in my scrap user system, I keep them at the end of my cutting table stacked up. So when I'm done cutting something, if I have something left over that's small that I can quickly get something out of, I'll immediately cut it and put it into my. There is still a backlog of scraps though that need to be cut. Nobody think I'm like super on my game here. I'm definitely not.
Yeah,
I just pick away
I
at things when I think of them.
yeah, I do need to find some method for organizing my stuff because I think I have a lot that I need to just like get rid of. I have scraps from stuff I made a long time ago that I'll probably never use, and I mean, I use my fabric differently. Like I don't do as much piecing. I mean, I do so much applique and stuff, and I end up with stuff like this. These sort of,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so.
What are you
Yeah.
working on?
So I am cutting out flowers, for my study quilt. I've gotten to the broderie purse part.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have these, and oh, gosh, I wish I could hold it up and show you guys, but they've asked us not to do that, because it goes in a touring show and it goes in a book, and so they don't want too much to be shown until it's out there in the public. But it's got these two, or I mean four, like the four corners have this kind of like broderie purse sort of like corner element. The original quilt, it was like on the sides and the top. The original quilt is a Florence Pito quilt, Calico Garden. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so the broderie purse, I'm cutting out all these flowers, and I had done a ton a while back, and then I started putting them together, and I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I like these flowers. And then our friend Kate sent me, she's always got her eye open with her guild when they're giving fabric away. She found me this cool. It's a chintz. It's actually
Mm-hmm.
glazed chintz. I think it's like drapery. It's a little. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that heavy. I mean, I really like this fabric. It's really pretty. But anyway, she sourced me stuff like that, and I was like, oh, I could add all these. I can add these. It takes a lot of flowers to make some broderie purse, y'all. Like if you're gonna do something dense. Yeah. So Flicky is finishing a test quilt right now. So are you testing a pattern for someone? I'm wondering. Yeah. So Janice said, I started as a sewist, so I have patterns and yardage of different types of fabrics. Yeah, oh gosh, because my sewing journey has been, the first quilt I made was when I was 16. Always stole from my mother's stash, but then I did like mostly garment type stuff, and then I did costuming for so long that I have like all that fabric. And then there was the time when historical costuming and garment construction overlapped with quilting and vintage textile acquisition. So yeah, I'm in a situation right now where I need to.
So do you see yourself picking up the historical costuming again, or do you think it would do you good to downsize from that?
I don't want to, though, because the way I look at it, because I am an exhibiting artist, a lot of the stuff I work on, even though it is I don't know how to describe this. It's like, it's enjoyable for me. It's not like it's somebody commissioned this quilt and I'm making this quilt for somebody based on what they want. And I don't do that, you guys, for a reason. And so like Flicky is working on a pattern test. So that's fun too. But I just, I don't work on stuff like that. So I look at the quilt making as kind of part of my education and job. And the costuming stuff has always been a hobby. I have never looked at that as something that I would do professionally. I've made costumes for people. I've had people ask me to make things for them. I did a whole thing for a belly dancer one time, like her whole troupe. Never again. Sewing sequin stuff onto chiffon is the worst thing ever. But anyway, I don't want to get rid of my historical costuming stuff because, first of all, they're some of the nice fabrics. They're some of the fabrics I've sourced over decades. And so, I've got like 100% wools. I've got some really lovely silk stuff. And it's like, I just kind of want to keep it. I don't want to get rid of it. And, again, like I also have yardage for things that I bought to make like a specific thing. It's all packaged up with all the notions and the pattern. And I just, I just wish there was, more time. That's my resource. I don't have enough time.
So in
Janet
your
said,
brain,
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in your brain, when we're thinking about stuff we keep, stuff we get rid of, are you thinking about it in terms of like your retirement? And let's say maybe you don't have money to go out and buy stuff. So you're like, but you know what? I've saved stuff for that. Like to prepare for that. Because that's how I think about it.
Yeah.
When I think about my fabric stash and people are like, oh my God, you have a really big stash. One, I inherited most of my stash, but I'm like, yeah, I do. But I look at it as that's one thing I'm not going to have to worry about in retirement. And it's so expensive. Like it's an expensive hobby.
Yeah, and just like you and I were talking the other day, like the tariff situation and so much stuff like fabric and the notions of today are manufactured in China and elsewhere. And we're kind of in a situation now where I know you had said like your friend Christine bought up all of a certain product that the retreat person had because she's worried about being able to get it.
She didn't buy all of them.
Okay. Well, you made it sound like she walked out of there like
no.
But in any event, she bought from that lady because she was concerned about being able to, because she can't go to Joann anymore. And Janet just said sewing patterns will become scarce as the big four pattern making companies have been sold to the liquidator. Janet, what I have to say about that is, now I know that there's a lot of people that are kind of left in a lurch because they were sewing with the big four. I think the big four did not do anybody a favor over the past couple decades. They never changed their sizing systems, and some of the
like modern bodies.
Yeah, the independent, because I'm pretty sure, I had heard this, and I'm pretty sure the person I heard it from legitimately knew what they were talking about. So I don't think it was well, this could be the reason, but the system that the big four worked off of, the blocks, and for those of you that have never done garment sewing, you can make your own patterns, draft your own patterns off of blocks, right? And there's like the body that you have to deal with. It's not as easy as like just flat, like quilting. But in any event, they based those blocks off of women in the military, like mid-century, because they had a bunch of women that they could measure. And that's where they based those off of. Oh, nice, Flicky. Yeah, those are great. Those fabric spaces. Didn't you and Anne go to one? The one you and Anne went to was more of like a art supply, or did you even go to that? That was just Anne.
Anne went to one and she said it was everything.
Okay, yeah, and I have one of those in Baltimore too.
There's one of those in like Western Massachusetts. I'm sure there's more, but the one that I know about is called Swanson's in Western Massachusetts. They do sell online. They're delightful. And I don't know what her current like price per yard is, but she's very reasonably priced.
Yeah. So, but what I was gonna say, and Janet just kind of confirmed it, the small pattern companies. So Seamwork is a company. It started off as Colette Patterns, and now it's Seamwork. The patterns that her name is Sari Mitnick, I think. Her patterns are the chef's kiss. They're perfect. I have never had to edit anything in those patterns. I made probably a dozen or more garments. They fit me. Cashmerette is another one. It's Jenny. I can't remember her last name. She's British, but I want to say she's in Massachusetts, or she used to be. But her pattern is for plus sized folks. So if you're plus size, or if you've got like a big chest that's really hard to fit, cashmerette patterns are like perfect. They are your go-to. So those two I've sewn with a lot. Folkwear patterns also, and those are more, a little more like ethnic garments, costumey kind of stuff. But I think they're also patterns that you can, definitely change and adapt to more modern fabrics and things. So I feel like the big four disappointed me so much over the years. Janet says, I just won't go to the whole projector over my cutting table system. I'm too old. That is a cool thing, though. When that first came out, I had been like really not enamored with it, but like really interested in it. And, I kind of followed some of the forums and the communities around it. And I'm like, I don't think it's not for me, but, I kind of feel the same way. I don't want to have to deal with figuring it out. And, but I think that it's such a cool thing. And I mean, like, it's a paper saver. I mean, I love being able to buy the indie patterns, PDFs, and print them out. And, that too is a hassle, so it's kind of cool to just put it right on your fabric. So Flicky says, I have my grandmother's 30s and 50s patterns that she blocked out already. Those are nice. Yeah. You have to modify bust and hips. Yeah, I hear you, Flicky. I mean, it's the, yeah, 2 size differences. Yeah, that, and I think that's the thing. But what I would say though with those patterns, and I don't know if this is your experience, but if you have to grade between, a top that's not consistent with your bottom, and I'm a lot of people that's the case, when you have to grade between, to me, the independents I feel are a little bit easier. I don't know why. I don't know. And maybe it's the types of like the style of garments that I've chosen from the independents. But anyway, I just, for sewing, I feel like, I don't know. I worry about the fact that with Joanne gone, like, where do I get thread and interfacing and all that junk that I just would like be like, crap, I gotta run out and go get that from Joanne. Oh no, I don't have a Joanne anymore. But you're right. I have enough stuff, and I have collected enough vintage sewing tools and things because I put it out there all the time. If anybody ever needs needles, any type of vintage sewing tool or any type of sewing tool, let me know. I've got them because the vintage stuff is so much nicer. I would not buy a modern needle unless, it's from like one of the fancy companies like Bohin or, those.
Oh, that's right. Flicky said Wawak. I always forget about them.
Yeah, I forget about them too. I always hear people mention them. Yeah.
The only thing that stinks though is that's catalog shopping and not.
Mm-hmm.
I like to,
Yeah.
you know.
Yes.
And for anyone's complaints about Joann's, whatever they were, like, I mean, I worked there. They weren't perfect back
I worked
then
there
either.
too.
They definitely were the bomb diggity in their notions. Now, that being said, we have a local place, which you have semi-local to you. And when I say local, I mean it's not far away. Fabric Place
Virginia.
Basement. You have one in Alexandria, Virginia.
Yeah, it's in Virginia.
Yeah, and it's owned by the same guy who used to be my neighbor. His brother runs the one down there. They have a pretty strong notions game over there, and they did recently take up even more thread than they used to have. So now I think they have like the Gooderman, and I actually think they bought Joann's displays,
Oh.
and that's why how they got them.
Yeah.
So there is that. So next time you go, I don't know how far away Alexandria is from your mom, but the next time you go to your mom's,
It's close. It's about 4. And yeah, that's the thing. Like my mom and I had heard of it, and I don't know how, because my grandmother passed away in 2018, but she lived right there in Alexandria, and of course my mom grew up there. And when we heard about that place, I was like, how do we not know about this place? And
it's not that old.
yeah, I guess that's what it is. It's just not that old.
Yeah.
And with the pandemic and my grandmother passing away, we were not in Northern Virginia for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years very much.
Well, you may have heard of the old company. So the company used to just be called Fabric Place. And it's a Massachusetts company. It started in Framingham in this really cool building that was like 4 floors. It was, I have such fond memories of going there with my mom as a kid. And I used to hide under the cutting table and listen to the ladies chatting. Anyways, they ended up getting kind of like a little too big. And like they had like a showroom in Boston on Newberry Street, and like because they did everything. They did quilting, they did home deck, they did yarn, and like all they did a lot, and they got a little too big, and they ended up closing the company. The whoever like wasn't the dad was in charge of them. That building they had sold, all that stuff. The son, Peter, who runs it now, he used to be for a long time. He was a fabric rep. He decided to get it going again, and kind of reinvent because people missed it so much. And he just started off with this one building in Natick. I don't love it compared to the old one. It's very industrial, and it's called Fabric Place Basement because it's a basement of a building.
Okay.
There's no windows or anything. I don't love that, but whatever. He is a discounter. Their average price per yard, I think, right now is like $6.99. He's got boutiques for like $8 or $9.99. He does home deck. He does clothing. He does all that kinds of stuff for all those people that were wondering what they were going to do. He doesn't really do a lot of online sales, I don't think.
Yeah, I think that was the one thing that I noticed. I don't think they have a very big online presence, which I think when you're...
They were kind of working on it during COVID, and then I don't know if they still are. He still does yarn. Anyways, he started to get kind of big and was starting to have a hard time with storage. So I'm guessing that he talked his brother into opening one in Virginia. And it's funny, the last I had heard, there was a little talk about him maybe opening one in North Carolina. I don't know if that's still a thing, if that's going to happen or not. But yeah.
So Janet's looking for a Dritz adjustable hem measurement tool with a metal slide instead of plastic. Still looking. Let me look for you. I might have one. I'm not sure if it's complete. It was with a sewing lot I bought, I think, at an auction. But I have it stashed away in one of my upstairs bookshelves because like it's storing it is because it's it's kind of long. So let me look and see if it's complete and if it's the thing you want. And my dear, it is yours. See, Stephanie is like the the 6-inch one. Okay, I think I know what you're talking about now. Yes, okay. So metal instead of. All right, still, let me look and see. I have many things. But yeah, that stuff, I mean, some of it, like, I've looked at my big bin of scissors and I'm like, yeah, unless I can find somebody that like locally to me could do scissor sharpening. I think maybe my scissor bin is not. I think I have a couple of pairs of dressmaker scissors, like the really big honkin' ones that I think are still, you know, in good shape, good enough shape to cut with. But some of, you know, the older ones are not great. But I mean, I have tracing wheels, and I think Flicky just said you don't like hand needles so much, the vintage ones. Yeah, you know, that's the chemical composition of like your hand sweat. My mom has that problem too with needles turning black as she uses them. I like actually they're probably not even vintage. I think the ones that I a lot of times will go to are they're actually antique. They're that old, and they are good needles. But my favorite needles right now are it was right on the tip of my tongue. That it's the company that makes, it's a Japanese company, and they make those really nice little Japanese notions, like the little turned wooden Kohana. That's what it is. I use their needles. They are expensive. Like you'll pay $20 for 3 needles, but they are a chef's kiss. I love them so much.
Well, and for an artist that does handwork, I feel like you should be investing.
I put a lot of mileage on needles, and a lot of our friends often will talk, people that will do like hand quilting will say, oh, I love it, you know, my favorite needles, I get them just bent just right, and I'm like, oh, I can't stand a bent needle. Like, no. So you know how to sharpen your own scissors? Yes, I have a sharpening thing, but I'm just like, I need to just try it and see if it's, I have those crappy old, like, it's the thing that you cut through. But I do have like the legit, like a sharpening stone and the things. So yeah. LJ says tulip needles are nice. Yeah, tulip, I think their stuff is good too. I think that would probably be, of modern needles, Kohana's the top of the line for me, and then tulip and bohin I think are kind of my next choice. So
maybe in Rob's retirement, you should talk him into getting up.
I've already tried that, because the guy that would come to Joanne, like our local, they would always talk about like what garbage he was. He was terrible. He, you know, whatever. People would were never happy about his work and stuff. And I'm like, all you have to do is get the sharpening equipment. And it's not just people like us that need our scissors sharpened. You also have hairstylists. They get their
lawnmower blades
and stuff. Yeah, but I know stylists, their scissors, like, I mean, they wear out just as fast as ours. And their scissors, I mean, I always thought the scissors I bought were expensive. Oh my God. What stylists pay for their scissors. I was like,
well, especially really, really nice ones.
Yes. And my grandfather was a barber. So we always had like barber scissors laying around for cutting paper and stuff. Cause he would just, when he would retire a pair of scissors.
I was going to say, you were cutting paper with your grandfather's
No, my grandmother would. And you know what? I'm thinking now, I'm like, I wonder where they all went. Because she used to keep them on top of the refrigerator so the kids couldn't get to them. Because they're, you know, they're long and pointy. And you know, even when they're used for paper, they're still sharp. So, but yeah, you know, it's a few pieces of equipment you need, you know, that to properly sharpen scissors. So, so Janet was asking me, do I want the Georgia Bone Steel binders? Oh my gosh, yes, ma'am, I do. Yeah, I will happily send you postage, Janet. I would love to have them. Thank you. I have a couple of incomplete Georgia Bone Steel stuff.
I wish you told me that. We had some in the bookcase in the book sale for the New England Quilt Museum like a year ago.
Yeah, a year ago I didn't care as much about Georgia Bone Steel. Since we did our stuff with Pam Weeks and Portable Patchwork, I'm kind of a little more interested in what Georgia Bone Steel was teaching, but yeah.
Well, and what are you if not performing the service of letting everyone else purge their stuff onto you?
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't know if I've mentioned this here on our streams, but I keep trying to figure out a way because, and I'm serious about this. I've joked about it, but I am very serious about it, that I think there's lots of people sort of my like above my age group, and I mean even myself, you know, I need to purge some stuff. And there are, you know, younger or just new to sewing people, and I'm like, we need a place that we can do that kind of easy trade, gift, freemium kind of situation. Yeah, thanks, Janet.
I mean, there are plenty of Facebook groups dedicated to that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I'm trying to. Yeah, I know, but like I'm specifically thinking like the AQSG crowd, American Quilt Study Group.
Oh, for them to pass off stuff.
Yeah, so like a lot of their books, their you know their libraries, some of the specific things like Quilters Newsletter magazines and the quilt engagement calendars. Actually, Vanessa just reached out to me about some of those. I'm like, cha-ching! Thank you, Vanessa.
Actually, and thank you, Jill, because at first she's like, can we get rid of these? And I'm like, they want to get rid of them.
Vanessa's
The
here!
has them.
Yay!
Yeah. And I was like, call Stephanie. Stephanie wants those.
Yeah. Janet, I'm trying to think, like, we follow each other on Instagram, right? I will do the thing that oh jeez, I'll give away much of my stuff. Pay the postage. Well, Lee, you know where to find me. You let me know, and if it's something that I can't take, I will certainly find somebody to hook up. Yeah. Okay. I'll hit you up on Facebook, Janet. Yeah, I was just thinking, like, I don't want to say my email address, even though I think...
Don't do that. I've done something like that previously.
The thing is, my email address is technically, it's out there. But yeah, I'm trying to lessen the amount of spam I'm getting and
yeah, well
phishing
then
attempts.
it could be when we do like a rewind again of like, you know, look at what happened on the last year of quilt nerding. Your little Cressida von Flinkerton could be like, remember those times Stephanie kept like doxing herself?
What I can say is quiltnerding@gmail.com is always a good way to get us.
Oh yeah.
Because Jill does check that email regularly.
I do.
I don't, but Jill does.
And if it is an email for Stephanie, I make sure that it goes to her.
Yeah. So quiltnerding@gmail.com. You'll always get us. So yeah. I just got rid of my post office box.
Like literally the other day I was on the phone with her.
Yeah, I was like, it's gotten so expensive, and I originally got it. Yeah, she can email Quilt Nerding LJ. That's what I was saying. Yeah, so we'll hook up somehow. I mean, I don't. You know, the thing is, it's like I don't care about any of you guys having all my contact information because I've known you guys long enough. But it's one of those things like we're at a point now. People have their eyeballs on us, and I'm like.
Well, and not to mention we've had two first-time chats in here today. I had posted about this in my Young and Millennial group.
Oh, did you?
Like, yeah, I was like, if anybody's lonely, we're hanging out over here. Come hang out.
Yeah.
I'm over here cutting stuff. I'm feeling very productive.
Yeah, I've actually gotten a lot of flowers cut out. As I think I was saying, Broadway purse takes a lot more cut fleurs than you realize. Because I thought I had cut a ton out, and I truly did not. I'm sorry, you were going to say.
Question, Miss Pink Obsessed Lady. I was thinking, for someone that does so much applique that you do, I feel like 5-inch squares would be very useful for you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm considering downsizing some of them just because I cut a lot of like the same fabric and like I just don't need 25-inch squares of the same thing because I've already like put them into my scrap user system. But like if I'm going to downsize some and want to get rid of some, like, are you interested in pink?
Sure. Yeah, I'm always interested in
Because
pink.
what I was thinking of doing is, because like I said, like this blue, I have like 50 pieces of this blue. I've already cut 20 of them into my scrap user system. I don't need them anymore. Like, And I'm not likely to use them as 5-inch squares. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll just start downsizing some, or even seeing if people want to like swap, like I'll send you um
Yeah. I
a
I also I also enjoy those swaps. I know there was a couple people on Instagram for a while that would do was like your quilty wishes, and it was stuff like, I'm looking for polka dots. Do you have polka dot scraps? And I sent somebody like a gob of them one time, and then another person was looking for trying to think if it was, well, there's always people looking for different tulip pink, but
mhm.
I want to say it was like some cotton and steel, some of the cotton and steel, the older stuff. Yeah. So Leslie and Flicky have both gotten some work done while hanging out with us. So that is always a bonus. Like we may sit here, and like I said to Jill, I was like, I literally will always bring my hand sewing. I will do like 3 stitches and then just talk about chicken sandwiches the whole rest of our our stream. So I think we've all been productive to some degree today. That's awesome.
Yeah, the last couple of times I had done some really organizational things. I hadn't done any. Oh, and I did do a little smidge of hand sewing on my retreat too. There was one night where I'm like, okay, my back has had enough of this chair. I need to go, and Christine and I are sharing a room, and we went into our room, and she got snugly in bed, and I sat on the couch, like with like lumbar support.
Yeah.
And sat and watched a show for a bit and did a little bit of handwork. And that felt nice. Oh, you got a chihuahua asleep behind your butt. That's like the best. It's gonna be so funny if you fart and like scare the crap out of that chihuahua. But my puppy's upstairs because I don't know why, there's something about my sewing room down here that she's like, oh, a place to pee. So I just am like,
no.
Goodbye.
Yeah. My cats usually, well, it's a little warm now. They have their season. Like I've noticed probably the last 2 weeks maybe, neither of them will come sit beside me. It's like it's too hot. They don't, because my cats are the type that like they want to lean against you, but God forbid you touch them. Then it's like, how dare you touch me? I'm going to stomp around and hold it against you until it's time to eat, which would be any second now, according to both of my cats' wristwatches. So it kind of like, inevitably they want to sit with me when I'm trying to like, move around and do all the things. And when I do want them to sit, when my foot is cold and I'm like, yeah, come here, sit on my foot. They never want to do that. So anyway. 5 as pet sitting clients. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah, a good friend of mine used to work for Humane Society, and so she had a couple of rescue chihuahuas, and she's like, oh yeah, they're so cute. She would put little costumes and little hats and things on them, and I'm like, oh, they're so adorable. And she's like, oh yeah, they're face biters. Like, what?
Oh my.
She's like, yeah. She's like, little dogs are great because they do live longer. Like very big dogs do not have incredibly long lifespans. Just tiny dogs have the cat type of lifespans. But she's like, yeah, they just, if you don't socialize them correctly or train them, and even then, little dogs love to bite, and it's like face biting because you're. I think dachshunds are supposedly bad.
Yeah, my Yorkie is quote a biter. She play bites. Like, if we're playing with her, she'll grab onto your hand, but she doesn't bite down. She's not a face biter, but that's scary. Yeah. That being said, though, she's not super well socialized like with other dogs or people. Although she's never bitten anybody.
Well, we realized our one cat, our older cat I think we figured out she's 10 this year. We got her, she was probably about 8 months old. But our other cat, we've had him since, he's my son's cat. We've had him since he was, I think we figured out he was about 5 weeks old. Way too young to be away from his mother and litter mates, but, people are awful and just dump kittens. You know how this goes during kitten season. So anyway, we adopted him. This is like early pandemic, so like 2021, I think. And he never saw people. People did not come to my house during the pandemic. We did not, so when finally somebody came to my house, my mother, my older cat, of course, loves my mom. She'll come right up to my mom, snuggle with her and stuff. He still will not come. So he'll kind of cautiously go up to her. She'll reach out to touch him, and he'll let her touch him a little bit, and he'll sniff her hand. And then he's like, I'm done with you. Hiss. I'm going away. And it's just he has just never been socialized. And it did not occur to me until that had happened a few times. This cat has not seen any other humans other than the three of us for 4 years. And that's a problem, and just having pets that are not difficult, I mean, he's been to the vet, obviously, but he's very difficult at the vet. 50-pound dogs. I've never been a dog person. I've never owned a dog. My husband, had dogs growing up. But where we've lived has just never been conducive to having, cats are a little bit you shouldn't ignore your cats. They need stimulation and they need to be played with and all that stuff. But, they're a little bit less energy intensive than dogs, I think. And that's worked for our lifestyle. But my husband's often I want a dog. And I'm like, get a dog then.
I will say, though, I've never had a dog in my face at 5 a.m. because
going
it's hungry.
Hey!
Yeah.
Hey!
I've also, never been woken up in the middle of the night to... Never with a dog.
This is true.
I've not only been woken up, and also my dog doesn't get zoomies at 3 a.m. or scream bloody murder at the top of her lungs and sing us the song of her people at 3 a.m. I have also never gone from my bed to the bathroom and stepped in the warm vomit from a dog. Just putting that out there.
Oh, okay, you're a vet tech. Okay.
A 16-pound disaster terrier.
You gotta love animals. My son and I were talking about that the other day, and it's kind of we enjoy animals most of the time more than the people in our lives. Your animals are, they'll pester the crap out of you, like your cats, for food and stuff like that, but they don't, they're not, they're happy to see you, they're not gonna talk trash about you behind your back. Disaster terriers, I guess that's I know
That's a technical term.
Well, the reason that we got our cat is it was friends of friends that had her, and they had, I think it was 3 Jack Russell Terriers. And Jack Russells are very high energy dogs. And apparently when they cooped up too long with a cat that's smaller than them, they're so they literally had to keep the cat locked in a room so that the terriers wouldn't bother her. And so they were like, this is cruel. We need to rehome this cat. So my husband informed me while I was away staying with a sick relative in 2016, hey, guess what? We have a new cat. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Was he really just saying, you have a new litter box?
A new litter box to clean, yeah. Well, and that's the thing. We play that game with each other. It's oh, this isn't my cat. This is your cat. I didn't adopt this cat. Despite the fact I love both of them and would be absolutely, I'll be absolutely devastated if anything happens to them. But when it comes to feeding and litter, yeah. Sometimes they become not my cat. Oh, a Jack Russell mix who's a shelter to, oh. And that breaks my heart when an animal does something bad, and then people that have adopted are just oh, we gotta get rid of you. You're a bad, you're a bad dog. And instead of, yeah. Charities are bred to hunt foxes, yes, and that's why they're so high energy, right? And They're cats in dog suits. Oh, I love that. Janet, we're semi-feeding 3 feral cats to keep them away from our neighbor's bird feeders. Ah, yes. One wants to come in the house. I always love those like shorts or reels or, you know, wherever on social media where it'll be like a person who's like, I don't have a cat. Yet there's a cat sitting like on their kitchen counter. Oh, goodness. Yeah, funny. You know, exactly, Flicky. That's what I'm saying. You know, animals, like, dogs are gonna dog, cats are gonna cat. And I think people don't take that into consideration, and they don't create safe situations for pets. They don't, you know.
Well, I would never, ever have a sugar glider out loose in the same room as my Yorkie. Because she would absolutely go after her. And
for those of you who don't know that Jill has sugar glider, or well, I think now you just have one, right?
I just have one. I used to have 5, but we're now in the season of passings. But also like, so it's funny. So because Sunday and I have like started gardening this year, I told you we're full on millennialing. We're container gardening on our deck because it's a really big deck and we don't use it for decking purposes. So I was like, and it gets really great sun. So I'm like, we should like container garden. So there's been a lot of activity now on our deck, with like chipmunks, and we're unofficially birding now because there's all kinds of birds. We've like discovered, Sunday went on this like rampage of like cutting back the shrubbery around the house, and we've like discovered 57 birds' nests. Huh? Yep. So there's a million chipmunks. So Winnie the other day was sitting at the slider, like just mesmerized, because she's never been able to get that close to a chipmunk. And I'll tell you, this chipmunk was taunting her ass. He was literally sitting there in front of the door eating a nut. Like, what are you gonna do about it? And she's just sitting there like big-eyed, because she knows the sound that they make, that chirpy sound when like they're like scared or something or running away, and she'll go after it, but she's never been able to see one like sitting still that close for so long. That's so funny. It was hysterical. I should have taken a video.
Yeah, when our girl cat yesterday, she loves the windows, and we have our cat tree is right in front of one of the windows in the living room, and she'll be looking, and my husband's let the bushes grow up really high, so she can kind of only see like a little bit. Yesterday, and I live in a very old house, for you guys that don't know, and so we have a lot of doors that we can shut, and so we had the door shut to the hallway, and I went up there to get something, and of course she darts out there, and I realized she knows that the window upstairs is almost right above our windows here in the front of the house. She knew she could go up there, get in that window, and look down at what she wanted to see. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you smart rascal. And then, of course, okay, this is like a 10-pound cat. Try to pull her off of the ledge up there. And I mean, this is a windowsill that's like this wide. That cat had a hold on that windowsill. And I'm like trying to pick her up. I was like, how do you go from being this like sweet, mild-mannered I don't even think she's 10 pounds. She might be like 9 pounds. Sweet, mild-mannered, middle-sized cat who all of a sudden becomes like, has the weight of an elephant and the grip of the Hulk. And she can literally climb the glass of a window. I'm like, anyway, yeah. Cats have their own rooms. Yep. Dogs have doors. Yep. Now I'm interested to know, Flicky, when you take your working dog out, what are you hunting? Is it just like fun to chase things, or is it like are you taking your dog on like a?
Yeah, is your dog getting dinner?
The dog is responsible for foraging. I'm quite proud of my haul here of my little chintz flowers and things. Now I have to sew them all, and laying them all out. Yeah. But that this is one of those things where once I get them all laid out, I use the itty bitty microscopic little dots of applique glue and get them secure, and then I just mindlessly sew while I watch TV.
So how much more do you think you have to do to finish that project?
I think I can get all of the broderie purse done within the next couple weeks. I would say by the end of the month I'll have that done. And then I've got the quilting to do, and I'm gonna hand quilt. But luckily, the quilt I'm studying, that I'm making this quilt of for the study, I want to say she did a crosshatch pattern on the outer board, like the outer part, but on the inside where the pieced blocks and the applique blocks are, she only did like outlines. So she outlined the appliques, and then I think she did just like a grid inside the 9 patches. So I can show the quilt that I'm actually studying so everybody can see what I'm talking about. Let me find it.
So Flicky said rats mostly.
Okay.
And then we've gone up north and he
Nutria! Aren't those kind of big? Nutria? Aren't they as big as the dog maybe? Or no, so this dog's name, is it Rempe? Am I pronouncing that right? Rempe? Is this the Jack Russell? If it's in the yard, he'll catch it, yeah. Yeah, I know Nutria are kind of like they're kind of like water rats, aren't they? Okay, let me find where. And the quilt study.
Someone just turned on a lawnmower. It's been raining all day.
I just saw somebody mowing their grass in the rain. I was like,
you can do
what?
it. You can do it like if it just started raining and it's just sprinkling, but it's been raining all day.
Okay, let me share this.
That's the original.
Yep. So this is Florence Pito's Calico Garden. It's at the Shelburne, which is Vermont, right? They are lovely there at the Shelburne, by the way. And I guess the Shelburne is not. They have a season, right? They're not open, or the grounds aren't open. I can't remember the details, but anyway,
it's the grounds because it's in Vermont and they get some pretty hefty winters. Yeah,
but it's on a pretty large piece of land, isn't it? It's kind of pastoral and but anyway, Florence Pito was responsible for helping get the Shelburne up and running in the 30s or 40s. Electra Havermeyer was the woman that started the Shelburne. So I think when at some point Florence donated some of her quilts there, and so this one I think it's just really beautiful, and I really like it. And my version of
you've got a screen in front of the quilt.
What have I got in front of the quilt?
You've got the documents screen in front of the quilt. Oh wait, never mind.
Yeah, I'm looking to see I can see what
it's just on mine. It's just on my Zoom. I gotta look.
I think I can move this thing. Probably that might
No,
be.
It's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, so my version, I've done a lot of these little appliques, these little applique blocks.
Can you zoom into it at all?
Yes, that's what I'm doing right now.
Thank you. Sorry, on the delay.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what your Zoom view is. I'm doing the view for this
I was just delayed, that's all. God, there's a million different fabrics in that thing.
There are, yeah. And I love a scrappy fabric, a scrappy quilt. So she purchased or sourced or found these blocks, these 9 patches. She did not piece those. They were antique blocks. I, of course, had to piece mine. So there's that. But she did all of the applique on these little applique blocks. Everything is appliqued. She did not piece this center section. She appliqued the blocks down, which is insane. Mm-hmm. So that's been part of my study of this. And I'm like, this is insane. You know, these weird little oddball kind of edges and stuff. Yes, I have experienced that. But then the broderie purse, her broderie purse is very simple. My broderie purse, my quilt is square. And my broderie purse is like much more dense in the corners. And then I'm not going to do, this little, squares on the border. What I can tell you though, also, she appliqued those down. I mean, this isn't to make this border piece, it's not, I would not call it a beginner project because you know, you are dealing with like bias edges and stuff. But this is also not like rocket science to piece. I think Florence just did not like to piece. But you can see these blocks are all appliqued down, and you can see how kind of wonky some of them are.
I kind of like that though.
I like it too. I think it's so funny. It was really interesting to me as, you know, I'd read about this quilt and I'd seen pictures of it. And, you know, as part of the quilt study, I had to send a request to the Shelburne to get this high resolution image. And so I've luckily been able to use this image then to zoom in, and you can see like she's appliqued this stuff down. It's so bizarre, right? Like, who does that? Florence Pito does that. And so it's all appliqued down to this white backing fabric, and the white backing fabric is the only new fabric in her quilt. Mm-hmm. My quilt, I'm using, instead of antique fabrics, because I'm not about to cut up any of the tiny little bit of antique fabric I have, because Florence had, like, you know, in the 40s and 50s, Florence had a much more, I guess, thrifty access to this stuff. You can't get antique fabric just to cut up. Like, that doesn't, today, people don't do that necessarily unless they've got some grand project in mind. But anyway, long story short, I wanted to kind of replicate this, but in my own, in my own likes, and that is the vintage fabric from the 70s and 80s. So, you know, I've got all of these, Cranston fabrics that,
and lots of pink.
Actually, no, there's not much pink. It's a lot of blue and red and green and gold, because those were like those Cranston, like the 70s, those bright like crayon colors. Yeah, my quilt is like, her quilt I think is bright because she does have some of these, like, you know, kind of vivid shades, like the double pinks.
So is her original going to have more pink than your recreation?
Mm-hmm.
But you love pink.
I know. Isn't it wild? Oh, anyway.
So here, oh my God, just because it just came up right now, here's another fabric that I just cannot get rid of, I have had tons of it. It's a purple. Okay. And I've had tons of it in every part of my scrap user system, and I still have a big honking piece of it in my scrap stash that I haven't like gotten rid of. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I need to just like put it in a bag and be like, I'm sending this to someone just so it can be gone.
Oh gosh. Okay. So let's see. We've had some interesting conversation. All right. So, all right. Flicky's dog is, so it's Rempe, okay, named after Matt Rempe for the Rangers. Nutria, yeah, I feel like, I mean, Nutria are kind of, they're big. I don't know.
I'm not gonna lie, I have like no idea what that is.
Yeah, I've never seen them like a live one. I guess I've just seen pictures. So, yeah. I I guess it's not bad, I guess, to have a animal that could hunt for you. If come the zombie apocalypse, we need all the help we can get. He has black eye patches as a baby, and he was certainly not a gentleman. LJ says she's been using the Merlin app to identify birds around the house. I picked up a chicken hawk a while back. Yeah, there's a couple of apps I think that are good, and there's one my husband has used for like the bird calls, to figure out what those are. Yeah, I think there are ones, I don't know if it's like they have the bird calls and you can record it and it can tell you or what. I am terrible about identifying birds and things, and my husband, because he's an amateur photographer who does some really incredible nature photography, he's always like, just looks at me like
Muggle.
Yeah, we went to a fundraiser. He's a park manager, so we went to a fundraiser for the park the other day. And, all the people that come to the fundraiser are always interested, like, oh, you're Rob's wife, having a conversation and stuff. And they're like, oh, so do you like to hike and bike too? No, I do not. So you must love camping and hiking. Nope.
Like, I love sitting and sewing and eating.
And on the same token, he does not like shopping for fabric or cutting it up to make quilts. So we have the things we do separately. We can play side by side. And then there's things we do together. So yeah. Yes, exactly, Lee. There are ticks out there. Oh gosh, that's a crazy story. Like, you guys, if you do stuff gardening, head on a swivel for the ticks. And I don't know, Jill, I don't know if you knew Joanna's mother passed away from like some kind of tick-borne illness.
I did not know that.
Yeah, she was telling me and my mom about it when we were staying out in Temecula. And yeah, there are those tick-borne illnesses that, everybody always focused on Lyme disease. And I know a number of people that have had Lyme disease, but they're the other tick-borne illnesses that, they don't present with that bullseye, and you don't have any symptoms until several years down the road when you have symptoms. And it's not the same bacteria or parasite or whatever that causes Lyme disease. It's something else.
I guess we all need to get chickens, huh? To like rid our properties of ticks.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what eats ticks. Yeah, there's no Simparica for people. Exactly. Like, so yeah, you have to be so careful. And then if you do start to feel ill, you're having symptoms, I mean, I think it's worth it. And, some of the people that I've talked to, this couple that I was talking to at this fundraiser, it's their child, their daughter. She had to drop out of college. Like, she had 3 years of very intense illness, and they weren't sure what it was until she finally saw a neurologist. That's tick-borne illness symptoms, what you're experiencing. But it was neurological. They thought it was mental illness. They had her on, like, all kinds of medications that didn't help. So it's really scary. Yeah, you have to be really careful out there. Oh, gosh, thanks, LJ. The bird images are outstanding. Yes, he is an incredible photographer. People always ask me, like, how does he get these pictures? I'm like, he goes out at the crack of dawn. He has a little duck blind. Like that hunters use, but he makes, he puts it up and he has his camera and he just stalks them and he waits. But he looks and finds the one, like, he knows where the nests are and stuff, so he'll kind of stalk the nests. There's an eagle nest out there where he goes regularly, and so he's gotten pictures of the eaglets.
There's a woman in my town she does kayaking in town on one of the lakes, and she's also an amateur wildlife photographer. She's clearly in the wrong business. I'm like, well, you need to be working for National Geographic. Like, and it was so funny because she was out kayaking one day, and it's a lot of birds, obviously, because, when you're in water, there's a lot of water birds.
Yeah, that's what you see.
But then I'm going through, and she got pictures of otters, and I'm like, we have otters? She got otters one day. She got beavers. Do you remember that day I was driving near the house, and I was like, there is a beaver roadkill? Do you remember that day?
I think so,
And I was
yeah.
like,
And I was like, how?
Yeah, I'm like, never in my life have I seen beaver roadkill. Um, yeah, she's got otters, she's got beavers, lots of turtles. But yeah, she clearly, like, there's no way she's as close as it looks like she is. Like, she's clearly got one of those like super
Yes,
duper
he
like.
yeah, and that's how he does it too. It's like you have that like telephoto lens, and you really are pretty far away from them, so you're not scaring them away. Yeah.
And I'm assuming that every time they start shooting, they take 100 photos, and that's how they get those like mid-flight like
Yeah,
pictures.
he's got the thing where it's like you hold the button down and it's just
Yeah.
and he has like the little LCD screen that he can like edit like right there, just delete stuff that doesn't look good. Yeah. So.
Yeah,
thanks, Lee. I'll let him know. He always likes to hear how people feel about his. He had 2 photos in the silent auction for the fundraiser, and they both sold. Yeah, one he wasn't happy because of somebody else had it printed for him because they put it on these I don't even know like how it's printed. It's got like glass in front of it. It's kind of got little clips. So it's like there's no frame. Basically, it's like a frameless, just glass fronted thing. But however they print it, they'd like cropped it, and they cropped it incorrectly. Like it wasn't centered the way it was supposed to. So he wasn't happy, but it's still sold. I mean, somebody still paid decent money for it. And then he's got this one. I don't have. If I can show you on my phone because I don't have the folder quickly available. But he took a couple pictures that just were so fantastic. He did this Mother's Day one that, if I can find it. Here it is.
Yeah, LJ, if you keep complimenting him that much, maybe Stephanie can talk him. What is it? Oh, it's a little ducky and a goose. Oh, it's so.
It's a Canada goose, and you can see there's, of course, the baby under her wing, but then there's another baby back here.
Oh.
Yeah. And so he got a bunch of pictures of her and the little one, and you can see like she's sitting on the other one. But so sweet. And so he sent those out to everybody for Mother's Day. And then he got another one there at his dad's house. His dad has like a compost pile and some like there's a lot of brush back there that he just kind of leaves, for the wildlife, and he'll get foxes. And this year, a mother, she I guess created a den out there somewhere and had her babies, and so, and she was very wary of him. But so he would like wait in the house and like watch out the window and to see when she'd come out with the babies, and he'd get pictures of her. So he has this one picture of she's just sitting there and kind of her head cocked a little bit, and she looks like she's smiling, like she looks like she's doing that. It's really cute. And I think that was in the silent auction, that one sold for more because I think people were really like, oh, it's so sweet, the fox.
we have a resident gopher that his name's Winston. He lives under our shed. Although over the years we've come to find out that like we've had multiple Winstons because they're not all colored the same.
Right. I don't think they have a lifespan of more than a few years.
Yeah, and they just keep using the same den apparently. So hers, all's named Winston. And I swear that Winston can hear us looking at him. Because we often see him like out the kitchen window. And like as soon as you realize it's him, like you might be at the sink.
And he's like making eye contact with you.
Yeah. That's exactly what happens. Like you might be washing your hands at the sink and then you turn off the sink and you realize it's him. So you stop and you watch. And he hears you stop and watch. And then goes like, oh, and then like runs back in his hole.
Yeah, at groundhogs, I think they're so funny. We have a lot around us, and one living under my neighbor's shed, I know. But my grandmother used to always tell me stories. Of course, my grandmother grew up in Appalachia, rural South Carolina, very poor, and they ate stuff. She's like, groundhog's real greasy. And I'm just like, but she used to tell me, like, she would joke around and she'd be like, yeah, we're having groundhog for supper. And I'm like, we are not. She's like, I couldn't get out to the store.
There's a kid that used to work for me, and we're like sitting in the break room one night, and if I remember correctly, I think his family was Cambodian. I think, and they like went, like back to like his parents' like hometown one year, and we're staying with like an aunt or something, and we're in the break room one night. There's like 8 of us, and out of nowhere, he's like, I think I ate rat once. And it's like, what? And he was like, well, I'm pretty sure it's Cambodia, and we were at my aunt's, and like she came in with a rat, and then I had dinner.
Gosh. Well, I mean,
I was like, wow. And he was like, it was pretty good. I didn't ask questions.
Well, I recoil at that, but also you think about, like, I mean, different cultures eat different animals, and like what you consider a pet, or, like. Yeah,
isn't there one, I don't remember which culture that breeds guinea pigs for meat? Like, I can't imagine guinea pigs having a lot of meat, but like.
It's well, and I think those are larger guinea pigs. I think it's in South America. I think it's
I hope it's not like the capybara. Like, man, that's a big guinea pig.
Those are big. Aren't they related to guinea pigs?
Yeah.
Jay, that's a whole new level of you'll eat what I cook for you.
Yeah.
Janet said my dad paid me a bounty for every woodchuck I killed on the farm. Their den holes could flip a tractor. Yeah, they are. Peru. Flicky said it's Peru.
Yeah, there you go.
With that. Yeah. And at Peru, they have got some amazing cooking. Peruvian chicken, of course. But I think it's what really interesting about Peru. So when my son was little, his daycare person, we ended up putting him into like a private home daycare. His daycare person, they were Peruvian. And of course my husband's Mexican. So there's a little bit of kind of like Hispanic nod, but culturally so very different. But what I learned is Peru had an influx of Chinese immigrants or Asian immigrants. And so they have, yes, in their, and I don't know why or when, but they have in their cuisine, there's like a type of rice that it's almost like fried rice. It's essentially fried rice. And then there's a couple of other things that are kind of integrated into their, with their kind of traditional cuisine. And I'm here for it. I'm not going to complain. It was pretty good, so. They breed cuy. So what is that, Flicky? C-U-Y? Cuy? Is that the type of guinea pig? I don't know. I'm not sure what that is. Tasted very good. Yeah, I sometimes I'm kind of like, I can't necessarily even eat chicken sometimes if I really start thinking about it. I was a vegetarian for a while, but done in by bacon. I mean, oh my God, I love some bacon.
I was gonna say, you can't eat chicken sometimes.
Sometimes I will think about it and I'll think to myself, all of the things that vegans and vegetarians will let you know about factory farming and all that. And I'm just always
I would never have ever guessed that for someone that talks about like chicken sandwiches the way that you do.
Okay, so look, I can divorce myself from a sweet barnyard animal when it's from Chick-fil-A and it's covered in some crispy batter. or Dave's Hot Chicken.
I thought you were going to say Dave's Hot Chicken.
Dave's Hot Chicken, also delicious. Okay, so a cuy is a type of guinea pig. They're about 5 to 7 pounds. Okay, so I think they're the bigger ones, and that's what I think a domestic guinea pig like we have are a small animal, whereas those are bigger.
we're really bonding here today, and we're really learning things.
We are. Come on. This is.
You know?
It may not have to do directly
learning
with
together.
Yes, it may not have directly to do with stitching. We're on the glitching part of the program.
Well, and I'm not stitching. I'm getting a boatload of crap cut.
Yeah,
you know,
I too
just
am.
mindless cutting while sitting on my butt.
Okay, chickens, ducks, and rabbits. Yeah, you know, and I have respect for that. I have respect for, like, you know, farming, small farming operations, and I really believe that that's a better way to get our food is, you know, seasonally and locally. And you know, I think that we really should go back to that. You know, eating seasonally and only sourcing our food locally, but I'm not involved in the logistics of all that. And, you know, I know some places it's just that's not feasible. So, yay! 2 sides to finish your binding. I love binding. Binding's my favorite.
I have never done binding.
Because you've never actually finished any of your quilts.
No, that's not true. It's funny. I had this conversation with someone at retreat too. Let me find a picture. I have finished 2 quilts out of quite a few tops. And so the first one that the first one that I finished, I needed it like completely finished really fast because it turned into, stop it.
Janet considers you a soul sister because she hasn't finished hardly any of her quilts either.
Well,
Why do you think I make tiny quilts, Janet? I make small, tiny quilts.
Well, the first one I finished, it at the last minute was becoming a baby gift. So I needed it like finished. I had the top done, and then I'm like, I need it quilted and bound because like I picked a top and like made a baby gift. The second one is, which Stephanie, you've seen this before. The second one is this one. This is a Bonnie Hunter quilt.
And I love this one. I think this is like really amazing.
It's called Straits of Mackinac. And I did it at her retreat house, and it's like 90 by 90. It's by far the biggest quilt I've ever made. I don't know that I'll ever make one that way big ever again. And it's very, because it's all scrappy, it's very seam heavy. Even the border is pieced here. It's like a piano key border. And I finished it at my aunt's cabin in Maine because she had this really long dining room table that could take up all that bulk. Mm-hmm. And my current space could never. And somewhere are pictures. I had to pin tons of shit because I am a pinner, but it also had 700 intersections. And there's pictures of me having a row up on the counter with peanut butter jars holding up the ends of it because it was so heavy. And then afterwards, manhandling that over to the machine. There's pins like in my boobs and like everywhere. And by the time it was done, it was so big and heavy and obnoxious that when I pieced the last seam, I just folded it up and put it in and was like, I'm going to throw this away if I have to look at it again. So I hadn't ironed the top, which you're supposed to do before you bring it to your long armor. I brought her the backing unpieced. And my backing is also my binding. And I said to her, like, you're ironing this, you're piecing the top, and you're doing the binding because I can't look at this thing ever again. And
you must have a really nice long armor, because most long armors would be like, you get the hell out of here with that.
Oh no, she charged, she those are all things you can pay her for.
Yes.
So I just said to her, like, and she loves binding. And I said, just charge me. It cost me, I believe, around $500 to finish the quilt.
Because she did a whole bunch of stuff that.
Yeah, because of all that crap. But I was like, I started this quilt with a bunch of friends. They did it too. And we kind of had a bet that we would finish it in the year when we went back to the Bonnie Hunter retreat to take pictures of it over the balcony at the retreat house. Only 5 out of like 10 or 11 of us finished. One of the gals finished right then and there and just had the top. But it's a very heavy quilt. I was even joking with her. I'm like, when you're done quilting all 3 million of these seams, we won't be friends anymore because it'll probably break all of your needles. She said that it quilted up really nice, but
that is really
so,
pretty. And those are batiks, right?
Nope.
Oh, they're not.
They are everything.
Oh, okay, because they
closest
read
this
as
will let me get.
batiks, like from this distance.
No, see, like here's a print that has like some orange in it, or
Yeah, I see that.
these are all like these triangles are all foundation pieced on paper and trimmed aside.
Oh, I see. They're like strips. Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's got a lot.
Yeah.
I love that. That type of layout, like that type of pattern. I realize this is a Bonnie Hunter.
It's Storm at Sea.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's based on Storm at Sea, and or Kaleidoscope, I think, is another one that's kind of like that. But when you look at it, you see that secondary pattern of the circles, even though there is not a curved piece in there. Yeah.
And then I also chose a binding. So the binding here, down here, see that white? It looks like the binding is like pieced. It's not. The backing matches this in color, but it's like a blue with like white trees.
Okay.
So that when she did the binding, it looked pieced.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I do love a binding that's got some personality. Like a lot of my quilts, I'll put like a scrappy binding, or I'll do like a bias stripe. I also found some striped fabric that was already diagonal stripes, so then I could cut it on a straighter grain. I almost always do bias binding, even for straight-sided quilts. And there came a point where I was like, why am I doing this? Because quilts with straight sides don't need bias binding. So anyway,
I don't know. You know what? I don't even know. I don't know how she did it. I don't care. I don't care. It's done, and that's all I care about. Because
I'm actually sitting on one of my quilts, my bedside.
I would have never ever finished it if I didn't have her support. So Janet asked if I the fact that I don't web like Bonnie does. Bonnie like webs her rows together, and Janet, it wouldn't have mattered if I did, because I needed to pin.
What does that mean?
7,000. When she's putting rows and things together, she doesn't cut anything apart.
I see.
She keeps the string going, and it webs it together so you don't get lost.
I see. Okay.
And I
so
would
it's
argue
the sequence
that
you sew it together and then you leave the chain.
Yeah, and I would just argue that like it just wouldn't have necessarily worked that particular way with this particular quilt, because it just needed to be pinned. And LJ said that was really worth it. Yes, quilts with lots of pieces are really heavy. And it's funny, one of the girls was like, oh, that's out on your bed now. And I'm like, it's not. For 2 reasons. One, I haven't washed it yet. It needs to go to an industrial size washing machine.
Because it's a big old gal.
It's too heavy. Yeah, once it gets wet, it's too heavy for my machine. My machine will just like run around. And 2, I feel like I might put it on a guest bed. I'm a little afraid to put it on my bed because I'm a tugger, and there's so many seams. I'm afraid I'll pop a seam. And with the quilting, it's less likely, but it's funny, what's on my bed right now is another quilt that quilter made that I bought from her. That's a star quilt.
Yes, rinsing the quilts once you get them wet is a nightmare. Washing quilts is kind of awful.
That's why it needs to go. Well, yeah, someone was like, why don't you wash it yourself at home? I'm like, I don't know. Like, quilts today are so heavy.
So, what was it was an all-over pattern? How'd she quilt it?
It's an all-over pattern that kind of looks like water. Yeah. So what do you got there, girlie?
Yeah, this is a quilt I made a very long time ago. It is a 9 patch.
It's a very long time ago.
Like 10 or 11 years ago. So, I mean, I guess it
started quilting.
Oh gosh, I thought I was standing on one of my cats. I was like, what is down here that's warm and soft? Oh, it's just the pillow. The pillow I was also sitting on. so I realized, oh, this is a hot mess. So I realize this is not as much to look at, but what you are looking at here is a 9 patch, and I might have it upside down. But it's a 9 patch that is actually the number 9. It's hard to see it here, but you can see the 9. So yeah, it switches back. It switches to these other colors. Yeah, I thought it was fun. I thought it was clever. The contest didn't, so. Oh, I have it turned to the side. Okay, so this part here is the bottom swoop of the 9, and then this is the hole, and then this is the body of the big round part. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I liked these colors. They're Konas. So this one's pickle. This one I think is curry or something. I think this one's called pool, and I don't remember what this one's called, but this one's kind of looking like a dark blue on my screen. It's more of a,
yeah, it definitely looks like a dark blue.
Yeah, it's more of a greenish blue, and then this is kind of a sea foamy color. But yeah, it was kind of experimental. I have has a scrappy binding. You can see I've got a pink of the binding.
You're like, I gotta put pink in here somewhere.
There's a stain on it. I wonder what that's from. Probably something I've been eating or drinking here at the desk.
It's not horse blood?
It's horse blood from that last time I had to ride cross country, and then this fabric on the back I think is Carolyn Friedlander, I think, for her like architecture series, or whatever that series was called. So anyway, yeah, I was proud of it because it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to figure this thing out, and it's the quilting on it is I did with like a gold colored thread on this front side, and then the bobbin thread was just white. So yeah.
Oh, so you quilted by machine?
Yay, binding done. Congratulations.
Wow, Flicky, you're on a roll.
Yeah, LJ, I think maybe it's coming up as an accurate color for you, because I think, yeah, it's kind of turquoise and like a light turquoise and a sort of a tealish, bluish teal. Yeah. So out of character for me, because ordinarily you would think I'd pick pink.
So what was the contest that you were entering that in?
It had something to do with 9 patches. I can't remember. It was related to QuiltCon, but I can't remember. Oh gosh, I'm completely blanking on what the challenge was, but it was a 9 patch challenge, and I thought, well, what's more 9 patch than making a 9 out of 9 patches?
Are you entering anything into the next QuiltCon?
Probably not. I just automatically assume I'm a QuiltCon reject, even though long-time QuiltCon super volunteer. Although it's been a few years since I volunteered.
Well, at least for QuiltCon, you volunteered for other things.
Yes, I do volunteer for other things, but not for QuiltCon.
Oh my goodness, Flicky did 4 quilts done this week. My God, that's
2 more baby quilts. You are on a roll. Yeah, everything I'm working on right now is small, other than my study quilt. My study quilt is only like 40 by 40 inches, so it's not big either.
I have really discovered that I like making blocks more than anything else. Once things start to get big, I'm like, yeah.
Well, but that's the thing, and I always labored under this concept that quilters did like whatever quilting they took up, whether it's hand quilting, machine quilt, whatever, that they liked to do it all, and that's why they did it. And I think my mom enjoys both aspects of it, like piecing slash applique, because she likes applique too, but also quilting. Whereas I could take or leave quilting itself. Some of the quilting designs I've devised for my small quilts, I think that, I feel good about them, but I just don't love quilting. It's just not my. I feel like I'm not good at it, even though I've been doing it for a long time. I feel like I've gotten very good at applique, and like that's kind of my skill set. So yeah, I think if I went back to making larger things, I would, if it was like truly a bed quilt, I would just long arm it. I've had somebody long arm it for me, because wrestling this kind of stuff through a domestic sewing machine, even I have a Janome, an industrial Janome, and it's on a frame, a Grace frame. Even that is like effort I just don't enjoy. It's hard on your body.
So then, why do you have it if you don't want to do that part?
Because I did it for a while. I have a whole bunch of they're not quite bed size. They're either I have a bunch of twin sized, and then I have others that are 40 by 50, like they're kind of baby quilt / wall hanging / throw sized, but they were really more art quilts. So and I machined it's not a long arm, so it's but on a frame I did that myself. And I have a couple quilts I did where I really like the kind of stitching I did. It's kind of this loose sort of doodly stitching. It's been a really long time since I've done one of those. So
I was gonna say, if you don't like them, if you don't like that, divorce yourself.
Well, exactly, and I think that was kind of the point I was starting to make. That I think there's nothing wrong with liking one aspect and being willing to farm the rest out. Or I think Flicky just said switching, like sharing tasks with somebody that likes to do your binding for you. You'll do XYZ for them. I like that too. Yeah. Read 3 hours on a long arm for $60. Yeah. Is that at a maker space, or is that at a quilt shop? Yeah, shoving a quilt through a domestic, no thank you. it's distressing, I think.
Yeah, I was thinking, our friend Vanessa likes to finish other people's work, orphan work. Half of me is like, maybe I should just ask Vanessa to complete all of my tops for me, because I just want to do the piecing.
Yeah. Yeah. Makerspace, yeah. We have a makerspace that I keep wanting to check it out. Vanessa's still here. She said, yeah, I will. So I guess Vanessa's going to be finishing whatever you don't finish, right?
I have a lot. I also think I'm never in a real rush to complete stuff unless there's a reason. Because I definitely have some of those feelings of where is it all gonna go?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that much. Our friend Kenny, I don't think he's actively quilting right now because he's been moving. But he makes quilts and he does not sell them. He only gives them away. But you have to be a special person or in his good graces. I think he's kind of got the whole you have to be worthy of this quilt. You get it for free, but you have to be worthy of it.
I've heard quite some horror stories. I was at the studio where the girl that does my long arming once, and there was another gal there who was crocheting at the time. And she was crocheting something absolutely beautiful. And we're talking to her about it, and she's like, well, I thought I was making this for my mother. And she's like, but I'm really not sure I'm going to give it to her. And we're like, oh, why not? And she was like, well, she threw out the last one. And we're like, excuse me? What does that mean? Like, what do you mean she threw it? Like, did it get damaged? Like what? And she was like, no, she just decided she didn't like it and didn't want it, and she just threw it out. And we were like, that's not someone that should ever have any of your work ever again.
Yeah, some people don't
Like,
deserve beautiful handmade items. And even if it's something, like, if somebody makes me something, even if it's not colors I like or just, I think is ugly, whatever. If somebody makes me something, it doesn't matter. I
mhm.
will keep it forever. I will put it out when you come over, or if I see you, I'll wear it, even if I don't like it, just because I think that if somebody makes me something, that is just, I have the utmost gratitude for that, because I know how much time it takes to make things. I know how much energy it goes into it, and I gratitude for that. There are people that just do not deserve your efforts.
No,
So
and that's kind of what we were. She was like, well, that, and I'm like, no.
no, there is no with that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like, no.
Hey,
I was
Kate.
like, I was just like, well, she sucks. And like,
Exactly.
there's no
Yeah.
way around. Sorry, like, I'm sure there. I mean, I think at that time, me and my friend Pam were like, I would gladly, like, cherish your I mean, she was doing them. Oh my God, it was like white. It looked like lace. Like, it was so beautiful. And yeah, I was just like, okay, just do me a favor, make sure I don't meet her, because like I'm gonna punch her in the
Yeah, I mean,
face.
I think it's especially disheartening when it's like a direct, like your mother. I can't even. So Kate just got 7 or 8 orphan quilts from a deceased quilter. Was this a showing up at your doorstep kind of thing, or or just part of your usual intake? Added so much to your UFO. Girl, you need to get rid of those. Vanessa will take them. So,
Vanessa loves finishing other people's work.
yeah,
I
Kate, Vanessa, you guys hook up. Did you guys meet at seminar? I can't remember. I think you did.
No, Kate came the year before Vanessa. No, wait.
Oh, yeah, the Terry
No,
Town.
I'm lying. No, I'm lying. No, they
Yeah.
came the same one.
Yeah, you guys probably met
Yeah,
at
so then
seminar.
you guys would have met.
Yeah. Her son left at least 100? What do you mean, 100 quilts? What?
I'm hoping it's dollars.
Yes. So LJ says there was a woman at the quilt shop one day who showed off a very brown, very big quilt she worked on for the family raffle. The next time we chatted, she said a cousin or uncle came up to her after the raffle to ask for her to make another one for him just like it. Oh, because he liked it so much. Aw, that's sweet. Yeah, I think that within families, I think we have, you would hope you have mutual respect for the hobbies or the efforts or whatever, whether it is just I want to make a quilt and I'm just going to make a quilt and, or if it's like, I'm a quilter, it's my hobby. I think that it's important to have mutual respect for our family members and our friends that do things. And, it just reminds me, so our friend Mary Beth Stahl, she wrote a book, a quilting book, and she tells the story in that book. She's a sociologist, but she was telling me and Jill this story, where and it was about collecting more so than making, but it was a colleague who he was like a hardcore vinyl record collector. And, there are certain types of collections I think that things they collect that people are just like really super like neurotic about, and I think like vinyl collectors are that way. And he would spend a lot of time like on his vinyl records, and people kind of made fun of him, and he was like, well, it's this is a serious collection, blah blah blah. Yet he would turn around and call his wife's collection crap because she collected some type of little figurines or something that she would buy at thrift stores and antique stores and whatnot. And so Mary Beth was kind of like, as a sociologist, was like, I think you might want to like think about this situation here. And she's like, do you not realize that these little, like whatever they are, that your wife collects, she has the same passion and love for those that you do for your vinyl records? And he was like, head explode emoji. what? Really? And I'm just like, what kind of moron? Can you not see? Like, maybe those little figurines aren't as valuable as like an original pressing of the White Album or something, but it's still, they're important to that person. So you have to have respect for that. Oh, Janet, didn't go to your last quilt show because there was a bargain sale with lots of fabric and I knew I couldn't resist. Yep. Oh, shop hop. There was a great shop hop here, and then like half the quilt shops ended up closing down during the pandemic, and so they don't do it anymore. But yeah, my mom and I would go on that shop. It was the Mid Atlantic shop hop, and or no, I'm sorry, it was the Mid Atlantic shop hop does New Jersey and Delaware. We were in the one that did. It was just Maryland and Virginia, and yeah, it was. I would know every October I'm gonna be like broke because I would buy tons and tons of fabric.
Yeah, I don't do the shop hops around here for that very reason, because I feel obligated to spend money in every shop, even if it's just a small amount.
Yeah, I got to the point where that was what I was doing. Just and I strongly believe in that too. If you're going to participate in those things, and if so, the shop hop I did, it was the stores were doing. The shops would give you like fabric samples and things like that, stickers and all that. And I feel like you kind of have to, like, you have to participate in the economy of the situation. And but I would be like, I'd buy like one, like a charm pack. So I got to the point where I don't need more fabric. Oh God. So, okay. So 100 partially completed quilts, mostly batik. Oh, the nightmare of batik. If you've never made a batik quilt, batiks are lovely, but the fabric that they use is so tightly woven.
Yeah, you need to use a sharper.
Yes, needles. You break needles, and forget about doing any hand quilting if you're involving batiks, because it's like getting a needle through that stuff is insane. Oh yeah.
What's for dinner?
I don't know. Maybe pizza or something.
We're having lobster.
Did you? Oh yes, you said your lobster. I sacrificed one of my cut and sews for the study quilt. Wow. To get these little shapes that were these little flower clusters that were just perfect. They're just perfect, and I could only find them.
Did you get like everything cut for that?
I've got enough for right now. I got to see how all these bits work out. I want to make each of the corners like pretty consistent. Like I want, the central flower is the same on all of them. And then and then I guess as I fill in with tinier stuff, then I think that might change, might be different. But I think I just dropped a stack of stuff on the floor under my desk. So
I've gotten so much scrap user system cutting done here. I have to say, like, cutting is also one of the parts of the process that's not my favorite. And when I'm like working on an actual quilt with pattern and everything, I have to like do some cutting, do some sewing, do some cutting, I'm not one of those people that can cut like an entire quilt out ahead of time. It just like I'm actually right now staring at a box of a quilt I did cut out ahead of time, only because we were told to cut it out ahead of time. We were going on a retreat with my quilt, my long armor. She was going to teach this retreat in, I think it was Pennsylvania, and me and another gal from her studio were going. There were already other people in the area signed up, and at the last minute she actually had to cancel because her husband had like a heart attack. And that was, in my opinion, she actually canceled late. I would have canceled much earlier than she did, and was kind of just like waiting on her to pull the plug, and almost kind of like, do I need to pull the plug, because like you need to be with your husband. And she'd asked me and this other girl, will you guys still go if I don't go, because the woman that owns the retreat center can teach the class. And I was like, no, I wanted to go with you. I don't care, I'm not going. And all we lost was like a $50 deposit. But she wanted us it's a stack and whack quilt. And she wanted us to cut the whole thing out. She had us come to the studio one day to cut it all out ahead of time. because she's like, it just saves so much time, and like you can just spend more time sewing and this and blah. It was so painful that day for me to like go through that whole process start to finish.
I'm kind of 50-50 on it, and Flicky just says you have to cut everything out before you sew. There are certain quilts that I must cut everything out before I sew. I think things that are very like modular, like, so if anybody's ever sewn an Elizabeth Hartman quilt, her stuff is, it's very graphic. Everything is very modular and angular, and her instructions kind of encourage you to do that. Like, you need to cut this many of that and this many of that, and then they're kind of all matched up, and as you create the units as you're piecing. So for those, I've made 2 Elizabeth Hartman quilts, and those, definitely I had to cut all that out before. But I with applique, I do it in batches, especially with hand sewing. I'll do, kind of grab all the little fabrics and do, trace things and then trim them out, and then we'll sew like 4 or 5 and then kind of do that process again. So, yeah. LJ says, never regretted cutting out ahead of time. Saves good time for the good piecing. She loves piecing.
I'm not much of like an assembly line sewer of like, do all this step and then you do all this step and you do all this step. I like to, I don't know what you'd call mine. Like,
yeah, you're sort of a dabbler. You're a dabbler of bits and things.
Well, that, and the other thing too is I'm often working on more than one project at once. So I'll do, this half of this step for this quilt, and then like I'm gonna do half of this step for another quilt, and like, so I guess it's like project ADHD. I'm just jumping around.
I definitely, but that's the thing. Like I was saying, like I don't really ever have that joy of just organizing and pawing through your fabric, because I do have so many projects in various stages. Like I have something right now I've been looking at, and it's small. It's tiny. It's only about yay big, but it just needs a binding, and that's it. And I've been doing actually facings instead of bindings, so it doesn't even need to be like anything special. I'll probably just use this.
What do you mean a facing?
So instead of binding it, you stitch what the binding, and usually you're stitching something wider, and you completely fold it to the back. So the very front of your quilt, it would look like knife edge, except it's actually like, the big piece on the back. I've done a lot of my, my art quilts, stuff going to galleries that way, because there's something about like this that says bed quilt more than that. I don't know why. And galleries are real weird about that. They'll look at, oh, it's a quilt. Oh, it's a textile. And it's stupid, but and then there's a few pieces I've made where I prefer it not to have a binding like that, because it, I want it to not have.
Do you ever do knife edge?
I have done knife edge before. I don't love it, because you can't.
A pain in the butt.
Well, yeah, and you can't sew off the edge if you're doing a knife edge. You have to have enough to be able to like open it up and fold it inside, or you have to fold it before you quilt. I do have to say, I did a darn nice job with the corners on this. I don't think I've ever mitered any other corners on any other quilt I've ever made. I feel like my mom helped me with these. I am super garbage with the corners. That is why many of my other quilts have a scalloped border. I love scalloped borders, because mitering I can't do. So. Yeah, log cabins are an interesting one. I've taken classes in log cabins where, there's the very, specific cut your strips, all of them. And then I've taken log cabin classes where it's just like, cut a whole bunch of like 2-inch or whatever with the fabric, and then just whack them as you go. And that can get dangerous, because that can get your stuff out of whack, if you're sewing and then cutting. because you end up stretching it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I see both of those as being possibility. Janet says, I'm in the zone. I'm in the zone kind of maker. I can cut all day. I can sew all day. Yeah.
So the girl that does my long arming, she is a cutter, like a serious cutter. Like it's her favorite part.
That sounds awful. She's a
Um,
cutter.
Context is everything.
Indeed, it is.
And she was telling I used to go to open sews at her place. I don't anymore just because it's kind of a pain in the butt to get to for me where I am, and they're in Connecticut. And she was telling us a story about like being really upset. Someone may have died, if I'm remembering the story correctly, or was like hospitalized, and it was serious, and she was really anxious and stuff. And she said like one evening she cut out like 3 quilts because she was, some people when they're anxious they'll clean, to work off the anxious energy. She cuts. And like I've even seen girls come in and be like, can you cut a project for me? I don't have time, and I this and I that. And she's like, hell yeah. And she'll cut it in like 20 minutes. Wow. And
yeah,
it's
see,
just...
I'm terrible about cutting stuff when it has, like this doesn't have to be precision. When you're piecing, it has to be precision. I'm inevitably will like be distracted and realize that I was cutting like, if it's supposed to be 3.5 inch squares, I realize I've been cutting 3.25 inch squares. I'm one of those, like, so yeah. So LJ says, I usually make 80 to 90% of the blocks and then finish up choosing for the last few. Yeah, I think everybody has a different strategy, and I think that's yeah.
Oh, Flicky will cut quilts for people. Okay, girlfriend.
All right, so we're gonna get a roster here. Who will cut? Who will bind? Who will finish orphan projects? We all have our yeah.
We can call it like the quilt rescue team.
Yeah. Oh.
They will rescue you from things you don't finish.
LJ will bind.
Oh, and LJ will bind.
I'll bind. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really gonna I'm just looking over here I'm gonna get a lot of crap done. Because Vanessa's gonna finish the stuff I haven't put together. Assembled the whole top. And I have quite a few quilts where I've gathered fabric for it and I just haven't done any cutting. And then I've got tops I need to get quilted, but I'm gonna need someone to bind them for me. Yeah, we're gonna have a hard working herd.
So essentially what you're saying is Jill likes to make blocks, and Jill is gonna require everyone else in the community to assemble them, to quilt them, to bind them.
And to cut them first.
Oh yeah, to cut them out first.
Well, one reason too that I don't do cutting is because I do a lot of scrappy stuff and I want to keep adding in interest.
Yeah. Yep.
So I often can't always cut stuff ahead of time because depending on what I'm making, I might need to go out and get a little more of something. Another shade, another fabric, another fat quarter to bring in more.
Flicky says anything
diversity.
but binding. Oh, and so Kate says this is how our guild does 3,000 charity quilts a year. We each do the part we love. Oh, I like that. That's very cool.
And that is 3,000. That is a robust charity quilt.
Yeah, your guild is pretty big though, isn't it, Kate?
That's obviously very active. But touche, Kate. 3,000. Well, and considering the kind of fabric donations you guys end up with, you can definitely. You definitely have the stuff to pump out quilts like that, but I mean, congratulations on...
Yes, literally all of this fabric I have been working with is from Kate's guild. So maybe not this piece. I don't remember. I don't know. Does this look familiar, Kate? Did you send me this? I can't remember. Wow, 3 quilters who do 20 a month. Oh my gosh.
I have a couple of girlfriends that really crank them out. And I'll tell you, in my retirement years, when I'm just sitting on tons and tons of stash, that's probably what I would spend a majority of time doing is
Okay,
sharing quilts.
speaking of quilting all day long, have you guys seen The Quilters? I know Jill has not. It's on
not.
Netflix. It's a 35-minute documentary. It's by Jennifer McShane.
It's only 35 minutes.
Yeah, it's very short. But it's by Jennifer McShane. Yes, I could have watched it for 2 hours. Like, it was so good. I finally watched it last night. I'm a member of the Quilt Alliance, and they did a watch party last night. And it was funny. We watch, and then everybody starts turning their cameras back on, and Amy Milne, who is the executive director of Quilt Alliance, she was like, okay guys, what do you think, what do you have, like, because we like, that was part of the thing, was like, watch it and then maybe talk about it for a little bit. And I was like, okay, I had avoided watching this because I knew it was going to make me cry. And it did. I was like just sitting there the whole time, like just wiping the tears, because it is, oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, so Kate says that there's the book that talks about EPP in British prisons. Yeah, so in Find Cell Work is a British program. That one, the guys are actually, they're doing needlepoint and some other stuff. I think some like embroidery and things. And they sell their products. The men here that this documentary was about, specifically a maximum security prison. I want to say, is it Missouri? Was terrible. I literally just watched it last night, and I've seen lots of press about the program, and I can't remember now, but it was just a handful of the men that they kind of followed and spoke with, and it just it humanizes them. And I mean, we had a little discussion about, well, what about, because about half of the men they talked, more than half the men they talked to, I think they were doing life, so they're not getting out. And I mean, when you're doing life, it's because of murder. Unless you're like a high ranking racketeering mobster. Usually when somebody's doing life, it's for murder. And they all said, I'm here, to face my crime. I mean, I should be here. I did a bad thing. But you look at these men and you're like, setting aside the crime they committed, yeah, I mean, I just, the humanity of it all, right? Yes, Missouri, yeah. And yes, it is worst of the worst. I mean, it's a maximum security prison, and they have to, like, they can't be part of this program unless they've qualified for it. They can't have...
Yeah, they have to be, like, model prisoners.
Yes, they can't have had any kind of infractions. And so, I mean, that in itself, you think to yourself, okay, it's not every prisoner's getting a quilt or walking around with rotary cutters. They have a program for that. But what they're making the quilts for, they're birthday gifts for foster children. Mm-hmm. And that, and I saw an interview with a man, and I'm pretty sure it's the same program, but it's been a long time ago, and I did not recognize him as being one of the people that was part of these, this documentary, but he had said, I was in foster care, and the situation, my life as a child led to me being here now. And he's like, if I can make something that would give a little bit of comfort to a child in foster care, and then maybe they would know somebody cared about them and that they wouldn't end up where I am. And I'm just like, oh my God. So knowing that was the kind of message that's coming out of this, I did not want to see it until I could see it with, like, I didn't want to watch it alone, I guess is what I'm saying. So yeah, it was, oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh, Kate says there's an update on Instagram that says where the guys are now. And Janet says, yeah, they've been inundated with supplies now at the prison. Yeah. But what I was going to say, though, is what really amazed me. Oh, and the other thing they do, it's not just the quilts. They also have a little cottage industry where they make weighted blankets and vests for autistic children. Mm-hmm. So that is not necessary. I don't know that that's necessarily, well, that might be a birthday thing too. I'm not sure, but they send these, and the caretakers at these schools, where some of these are profoundly disabled children, they said that the children are just, enthralled and ecstatic to get these gifts. And, mm-hmm. It's just, it was really like, just, I don't know what to say. It just hit me. And the quilts they're making are really good. I'm not talking like in my mind I just thought, oh, they're just making a bunch of 9 patches or something, just scrappy 9 patches, and that's not what they are. Some of these quilts were very intricate. And I guess they would get information about the kids. They would know like how old they are, if they're a boy or girl, and maybe even like what they might be into. I kind of got that impression. Because the one guy was
they
making
could tailor it to them as best they could.
Yeah, the one guy was making a quilt that was like 1960s kind of, and had sort of there was like some guitar fabric and stuff like that. So think about this. They're making this really lovely stuff with just no choice. They have just random stuff that people send. And granted, it's a lot. They have, they had the storeroom where they had all the fabric, and the guy that kind of is he manages the fabric. But there's no major quantities of anything. So you think to yourself, like, it's easy for us to go like, oh, I could just go get another yard of that color or whatever, to make what I want to make. But they've got a plan based on what they have access to. So I thought that the ingenuity of what they were doing and the effort that they put in. But then this flip side of it I had never thought of was that, they asked the question, well, how do you think that the family of one of their victims would feel watching this? And I had to think about that for a minute, because I think that certainly people that have not experienced any healing from the loss of a loved one to a violent crime, I understand your mindset might be in like, I want retribution. I want to know that this person is in a dark hole enjoying nothing because they took my family member from me. I understand that. I have a situation in my own family that's like that. But on the flip side of it, I look at it as they have been model prisoners and they have qualified for this program. And no, that doesn't make up for their crime and the thing that they took someone's life. But the fact that they're doing something that's productive, and, my scholarship thing that I did with the Quilt Alliance was about mental health and quilting. We know that it's good for you. So, I had a swirl of feelings about it last night, and it's really worth it, you guys, to watch it. And I had said to Jill, like, maybe we should do a watch party, because Jennifer McShane is encouraging people to do watch parties for it, which I'm sure Netflix is very unhappy about.
Probably for the discussion afterwards. So
yeah. Yep.
In grad school, we had done some outreach with a local prison. I don't remember I think it might have been medium security. I forget what it was, but it was the same scenario where these men had to qualify, to be part of this program, because we were in a room. We had to walk through the prison to get into what is probably like the chapel room. And we were in the room with them. So, like, theoretically, could have been bad news, if it wasn't a qualifying program. And basically what it was, I did it twice with 2 different classes. They were basically kind of studying the curriculum along with us. And then we were exchanging letters back and forth for discussion. And everyone, we like kind of were all split off into groups. And then we went there, I think, twice to do more in-depth things. And it was interesting because there was one point in time that we were sitting in my particular group. I think it was myself and one other student, and then I think we had 4, it was all men. I think we had 4 men from the prison in our group. And we're sitting there having discussion about what we're reading. And this was a religion program, so a lot of it, I think the class was Christian mysticism. And we're discussing things. And I don't remember what the topic was that we were discussing at the time, but one of the guys, I don't remember anybody's name, which makes me a little sad. But out of nowhere, he just went, yeah, well, I'm here because I killed my wife. And I had to sit there and keep a very just stoic face. I did know another guy was there for rape. We weren't told any crimes ahead of time. we weren't allowed to know anything, and we were not allowed to ask. So I was actually kind of surprised that anyone offered anything up, because I would have figured the only way to keep somewhat of a level playing field is just, this is a topic we're not discussing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think if you're going to give people the opportunity to engage in programs like that, you kind of have to level the playing field. That was one of the things that Amy Milne actually said with their, because the Quilt Alliance, the Oral History Project, they do have a set of women, incarcerated women, that had made quilts, but for them to be able to be interviewed, they had to state their reason for incarceration. They had to admit to their crime at the beginning of the interview, and they said it really colored the interview. And I was like,
well, because it takes a layer away. Like,
it does. It takes away the humanity of the person. And I think it's important to, like, people are not for the most part, people are not in prison. I mean, the guilty are there for a reason. Like, they need to be there. But I also think like that there is a fine line between punishment and human rights. And I think
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, and I was gonna say like that yes, okay, if you have to admit to your crime, but I was like, they couldn't have done it like at the end of the interview, like just to be able to get the interview part, Well,
because what it immediately does in the beginning is it defines them solely by that and not whatever else is going on. Yeah. And statistically, when we compare our prison system to any other country in the world with a comparable like structure, like if you look at like Sweden and Switzerland and their prison systems, they have the lowest rates of reoffenders.
But you can't compare Sweden and Switzerland to the United States, because you have to compare apples and oranges. Sweden is to Massachusetts as the United States is to Europe.
No, I'm talking about how they treat their prisoners.
Right.
Purely
I know.
How they treat them.
Yes, but what I'm saying is when you talk about populations, you have to compare populations to populations. And so, yes, is there a state in our union that treats their prisoners the same way they do in any Scandinavian country? Probably not. Do they have the recidivism? Probably not. That's cultural. But yeah, like you can't compare Sweden to the United States. You can only compare that to a population. So sorry. I don't agree. Okay.
And there's a lot of study about it, but it was more so along the lines of treating people's mental health, treating their physical health, treating things like poverty or giving them skills or things to set people up for success outside of, and then that occupational therapy, which of course Dr. Dutton can come into any conversation whatsoever. And I feel like that's part of what the quilting is doing here. It's that occupational therapy.
Absolutely. Yes.
Which leads to other kinds of therapy, self-introspection.
Having purpose.
And I kind of feel like I kind of feel like considering, well, I mean, this leads into a whole other thing, but just if my Siri just turned on my phone, that was kind of scary.
It's listening.
Considering that it is a lot of money to run prisons and to things like that, I feel like contributing to society in whatever possible way can happen is a much better use of time and a much better use of mental health than further like putting people in like solitary confinement for no reason or having them sit in a cell for 22 hours a day. Like, we know psychologically that makes people worse than they ever could have been.
I actually had a fairly good friend who did, I can't remember, I think his initial stint was only supposed to be like a couple years. And then he got into a situation and they got 8 years added on, and he finally did get out, and unfortunately he is no longer with us. But some bad things happened, but I corresponded with him for a while, and I just looked at the situation he was in, and I think a lot of times prisons are, I mean, in the United States, prisons are run by, they're no longer run by governmental entities. They're run by for-profit entities, and that's a problem. And then you've just got like this attitude and I mean, it's terrible to say, like, to gloss this over, because I think that there's great people that work in prisons and in you know, law enforcement of prison, correctional officers, but I think there's also a lot of people that will take those jobs, and it's one of those, like, these people, I can do what I want because these people deserve it. They don't have rights.
And no one will know.
Yeah, and no one will know.
There's no accountability structure.
And then the United States, we have a real problem with mental illness, and I mean, mental illness in prison. I mean, in a lot of cases, because we don't have psychiatric facilities, when people commit a crime that is, for all intents and purposes, anybody can see is based on some type of mental health issue, that person should be getting, you know, I'm not talking about murders, but you know, things. That person needs to have medical care, but we don't have the psychological services, so they keep getting worse, they keep offending, and they get thrown in prison, or they go to jail, and jail is a nightmare, and then they go on to prison. And actually, in some cases, prisons are far better run than jails. Jails are the real nightmares.
So in some of the comments here, like Clifton said, like, our comparison is closer to China. Janet says, like, you can't compare it. So there are lots of comparisons, and I had studied some of this in anthropology. So I think some of the reason you guys think it can't be compared is because you're thinking about it on a more kind of macro level, and I'm talking more micro. So there's an interesting book, if anyone's interested in it, called, like, Why Zebras Don't Have Stripes, that does a lot of this kind of statistical analysis on it's like people, community, and how like kind of bad things are treated, for lack of a better way to say it. There may have been even an update, because this was quite some years ago, but it's very interesting in terms of kind of like societal structures and community building structures and things like that. And that the whole, like, quilting thing, and then the thing that I participated in, the whole idea is some of that, like, community building. And it doesn't mean that anyone's ever going to be free again, depending on how, you know, severe their crime is, but it turns whatever negative into whatever positive there possibly could be.
Right. Yeah. And I believe that should, and honestly, I think all prisoners should have jobs. And in federal prison, they do. Federal prisoners are responsible for.
I would argue they have slavery.
Jail is where they don't have any kind of structure. But I mean, the thing is, if you're doing life in prison, you should have a job. You should do something every day. You shouldn't be, you know, you should have and that's what these guys in the quilting thing, they're doing like it's not 9 to 5. I think it's like 7 to 3 or 8 to 4, but they're doing like an 8-hour day, 5 days a week.
Sure. They have structure. And so, and
that's important. Yeah.
I wasn't like trying to not read your comment. I just didn't want to read it out loud for your privacy.
Yeah, and I was gonna say I'm so sorry to hear that, Flicky, and you're absolutely right. There are some people that cannot be rehabilitated. They are not. They just need to be locked up. They need to be locked up for the safety of others. There are certain people that are not going to be rehabilitated. There are certain people that do not have. They don't have the ability. They don't have the skills. They have personality defects, and it's unfortunate. Those people, there's just those people in our society. So I'm glad that he's in prison. Sounds like, yeah. How did we get on this topic? We always do this. We get to the end, and I was just trying to get everybody to watch that documentary. And I really do think you guys, like, really, this may take us a little bit of time, but I would love to do a watch party for it. So even if you do end up watching it, I mean, like, who doesn't have Netflix or have access to Netflix? I feel like at this point, quilters who've not watched it yet are probably just holding out like I have been, or just haven't had time, because I'm like,
I just hadn't had time because of course you know in the Young and Millennials Facebook group we had to start removing posts about it, because like every 10 minutes someone was posting about it, and we're like, everyone we know. But yes, I was gonna say
Yeah, I think we should do
We've
a watch
actually
party.
gone
Really...
further overtime.
I know.
Normal.
I was looking at the clock and I was thinking like, oh, we should wrap up. I'll mention the quilters and yeah. I need to go start thinking about dinner.
What were you thinking about? I'll mention that really heavy topic right at the end.
That really heavy topic that will lead to like societal debate. You can always count on Stephanie Cake to pull something out of the hat like that. You're welcome.
Yeah, so much for making sure that we had something like light today, since there's like not light things going on in the world. Yeah. And we're like, everyone, let's just sit and chat. It's Stephanie's fault, everybody. It's Stephanie's. But I have lobster to get to.
You do, yes.
Interesting.
Gotcha, Flicky. Okay.
Is there, Flicky, I'm just curious, is there a bigger conversation going on somewhere about that in particular? I'm just curious to maybe read about some other opinions.
There's actually, I will share, and I have not watched it yet, so I really don't know what the gist of it is, but let me share this link that they shared last night. And again, I'm putting this out there. I do not know what the gist of this is. So, but this is a link. It's somebody that actually, I think I actually know her. It's called.
Flicky is already working on a different quote now.
Let's cut the scrap. I actually know her. She did some kind of thing. It looks like it's just a minute long or 2 minutes. But anyway, that was shared with us.
And what is that? Is that a response to the videos?
It says why every quilter needs to see this. But I'm not sure because I mean, I think this is a pro documentary, but I do know Amy Milne did bring up the fact of like, but what about the victims? You know? And I think that's an important part of this conversation too, you know? So yeah. So Janet's got to pack boxes because I think you guys are having flooring done, right? Renovations. Oh my gosh. More power to you. I'm glad it's not me.
Yeah, right. I'm glad it's not me.
Yeah. So yeah, guys, I'll put it out there in the Facebook on my Facebook and in Quilt Nerding. So once we figure it out when we'll do it. So and for our new folks, I hope that you're following us on Facebook. Please join the Facebook page or the Facebook group, Quilt Nerding. And I also have a stream that I do on Mondays and Thursdays, and that is Cake TV. And I just have a page on Facebook, but you can find that. So, yeah.
Thanks for the insight, Flicky.
Yeah. You know, personal bias, like that's not a problem. That's, you know, your reality.
I mean, it's everything when we recognize that that's where we're coming at something from. But for you and our other gal that was with us earlier that was first time chat isn't here anymore, but I hope you'll consider subscribing and sticking around, because we do this about twice a month, and we do other really fun stuff. If you poke around our videos, like quilt exhibits and things like that. We do
more structured stuff during the week on a weekly basis.
And it's funny because normally we get stuck on talking about food a lot.
We did a good job. I think I did a good job today not talking too much about food. So
yeah, well, and we were really productive. That's not normal either. It's normally just like sitting around and doing stuff. But yeah, I'm gonna go eat lobster.
Yeah. Well, good luck, Janet. Yes, the purging. I think the purging is good. Like that, it's the thing. Like yes, it's awful to go through, having to go through stuff and packing boxes and all that jazz. But yes, it does end up better in the end. But my floors are awful and will remain so. So, well, I am so excited you guys came and hung out with us today, and I hope it sounds like you guys were all productive. Janet's off to become more productive. 90s paperwork. All right, guys. I hope you have a super weekend. And, yeah. we'll see you on the flip side. So,
Bye.
any parting words? Yeah. We'll see you guys soon.